Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all new season of fantastic racing action in the one and only UK Sim Racing GT3 League Season 15, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and powered by VRS, the virtual racing school. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for another fantastic season. 10 rounds of racing action and it all begins today with round 1 of 10 here in the US of A at the Daytona International Speedway. A circuit spanning 3.56 miles in length and consisting of 12 corners in total, making up most of the oval layout of the circuit, which you'll see at NASCAR race round year in year out, but also a rather tight and twisty infield circuit dominated by hairpins. It is a circuit that creates rather interesting games of high-speed chess, because the aim of the game, on the oval banking at least, is to be the one who's smart with the draft. However, you've also got to be bold on the brakes if you want to take places on the infield, and let's not forget of course the infamous bus stop chicane down the back straight, which can be the undoing of many a great race, whether it be for a professional driver all the way through to a rookie. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from circuit side. You're tuning right now via one or two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You could be tuning in via YouTube, and that's of course at UK Sim Racing on youtube.com. Just search for UK Sim Racing or UKSR, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including Alex Brown and also Sir Bottlejob, just name a couple. We also do have the alternative platform of Twitch, if Twitch is your cup of tea, and that's at twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of what media platform you're tuning in from, you'll be seeing all the racing action week in, week out, and this is a live broadcast, but it is a post-round broadcast. So what does that mean for the uninitiated? Well, right now, all the commentary you're hearing and what you're seeing on screen is live. This is not pre-recorded. However, the racing action did not occur today. It actually occurred yesterday on Sunday, even on Sunday the 22nd of June 2025, and we're bringing it to you as if it were live, if you will. In order to achieve that, well, firstly, we have to blindfold our commentator and broadcaster and make sure they don't see any of the race in action. And therefore, it's completely raw to us here in the commentary booth, and it's completely all new, therefore, to you guys and girls tuning in. And if you are somebody who took part in the racing as of yesterday or knows what happened, we do ask that you avoid any potential spoilers in the chat, not just for us in the commentary booth, for all the guys and girls tuning in at home. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX11 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds throughout the entirety of the season. And what a season we have got ahead of us. But speaking of a season we've got ahead of us, let's talk a little bit about it then. Let's look at our calendar. And as we can see, 10 rounds and it all begins at Daytona. After today, we head from the US of A to the United Kingdom for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in round number 2, and then all the way across to Japan via the Pacific Ocean for Fuji International Speedway in round number 3. Then we have our mid-season break week. It comes quite early for this season, but then we've got an absolutely brilliant sensation of 7 rounds to see us all the way through to conclusion. We head back to the United States of America on the 20th of July, and that'll be at the Virginia International Speedway, after which we then head to Italy for the Misano World Circuit Marcus Simoncelli, and well, it's definitely a mouthful, but it's going to be a handful for our drivers as well. The typical motorbike racing circuit, we'll see our drivers take to it on all 4 wheels, much like GT World Challenge Europe, and it's a much understated circuit when it comes to GT class racing, and that'll be the first half of our season. But there won't be a pause there, because we'll head straight into the second half of the season, and that'll be heading to France for the circuit de Magny-Cours in round number 6, no longer raced in GT3 class on an international stage, but once a premier location for GT3 class racing. We'll tell you more about it at the time on the 3rd of August, but then we head to Brazil for the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache for round number 7, and then we'll have Road America in round number 8 there, the classic countryside circuit in Wisconsin, the US of A. We're giving way back to United Kingdom for the second and final time this season, albeit we'll head to the home of British motor racing. That'll be the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for round number 9, then we bring the curtain down on the 31st of August in Germany at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke. Not quite the full Nordschleife, but we're heading away to the Große Strecke, and in round 10 of 10 we'll be crowning our champions. Now you can already see some rather interesting new things on this season calendar, not necessarily the circuits we're going to, but you'll notice the final 5 rounds from round 6 through to 10, they've all got a little asterisk against their round number. And that is because for the first time in UK Sim Racing's history in any given one of its leagues, and I do believe this is quite a rarity, of course, the Sim Racing spectrum, we'll be seeing the introduction of the UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup, whereby in the second half of the season, all drivers will be eligible to compete in a dedicated cup where our drivers score points in their classes based on where they finish in those rounds. And we add the scores together from round 6 through to 10, and we will be announcing winners in the Challenge Cup alongside our championship winners for all 10 rounds, albeit, of course, over all 10 rounds, they do have 2 drop scores scores, but in the Challenge Cup, it's all about participating in the final 5 rounds of the championship. That'll keep things fresh, it'll keep things mixed up, and it'll encourage drivers who had a difficult start to their season to keep on the grid and keep at it, because they may not be able to take home the Grand Championship prizes across the 4 classes of Elite, or 30 Pro, or AM, or Rookie, but they can take home the Challenge Cup trophy, and that'll be something exciting to see how that plays out over the longer term. Now, all of your broadcasts this season are being brought via post-round broadcast. Due to scheduling, we wanted to make sure things were consistent rather than have live broadcasts one week and post-round broadcasts another week, so therefore we're going for the post-round broadcast format. And well, if you haven't had it this way before, and you're perhaps sat there thinking right now, oh goodness me, I'm going to throw my popcorn in the bin because it's not live, I promise you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be as close as possible to the raw live experience, and therefore do bear with us, and I'm sure we'll convert you by the end of the season. But one thing that will also convert you to the racing for today is of course none other than the Daytona International Speedway's road course, and here is a circuit map of it, brought to you the premier sim racing platform. iRacing always has brilliant track maps with it, and thank you to iRacing.com for these. And we are here in Daytona Beach in Volusia County of Florida, the US of A, and this circuit, well, as far as American circuits go, this is one that's definitely stapled in the mind. With its 12 corners, and noting that it does consist or comprise of over an 85% of the oval layouts there, and indeed it's very hard to see where exactly the oval ends and the infield begins, or at least we do have the bus stop chicane on the back end that does show a bit of a sign of deviation for the oval. But the key point being around here is that it really brings together the best of both worlds, like the best oval circuit should. And as our drivers make the way down towards turn number 1, they'll come down off the banking and hard onto the anchors for the elongated left-hander, which opens up the infield section. For the sweeping chicane at turns 2 and 3, they'll go hard on the brakes, the International Horseshoe at turn number 4, the lowest speed corner on the circuit, before they exit the way out and head through the kink at turn number 5. Through 5 they go, and in towards 6, the second of the 2 hairpins. Another brave braking opportunity there for those who want to make a move and get it right. They'll make the way out and head out towards the left-hand 90-degree corner of turn number 7. It's a good exit that's required there, because that's going to eject them back onto the oval, and it's going to be flat out through the banking of 8, all the way down towards the bus stop chicane that turns 9, 10 and 11. And those who get a good run, particularly behind their rails, will take the tow all the way through 12 and to the start-finish line. And welcome the final lap. It could be that tow that makes the difference between second place and victory. But as we head into tonight then, let's talk a little bit about our rules. For this season, this is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 60% for all races. That will mandate a pit stop. More on that in due course. Qualifying wise, closed qualifying format shall be used, with drivers having 4 flying laps available, 2 of them plus an out lap. As for the race, it shall commence via a double foul rolling start, as it's a tradition of the UK Sim Racing GT3 League. There is 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel. That's 60% fuel load, restricting the ability for drivers to get to the end of the race distance unscathed with fuel capacity. They must come into the pits to put some fuel in. But changing tyres, well, that's entirely optional. It's up to them. Each driver has 1 fast repair available should they pick up a bump or 2, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 more instant points. And if they manage to get to 30 instant points, they will be disqualified. But I don't think in recent history, at least in the last 3 years of current UK Sim Racing GT3 League racing action on any league, have we ever seen the disqualification, and long may that continue, hopefully. And now all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race with regards to any instance between drivers, and that's all our rules, regulation, everything between. But before we can quite come back to circuit side, we also want to give a huge shout out to our title sponsor, the Virtual Racer School, or VRS, because thanks to them once again, we'll be giving away VRS competitive subscriptions to our competitors. Now for each round, we shall be giving away separate raffle draws of the prizes as follows: a 1 3-month subscription, a 2-month subscription, and a 1-month subscription. Therefore, you guys and girls as viewers, unfortunately can't take part in this unless you were one of the drivers on the grid, but we will be revealing at the end of today's broadcast who the winners of each of these subscriptions is. And well, we should point out that it's any driver who takes to the grid for the round shall be eligible, so long as they have not won a given prize in a previous round. So if a driver wins the 3-month subscription as of the raffle today, it means they are no longer eligible for the 3-month prize in any of the future rounds. Conversely, they can still be entered for the 2-month and the 1-month subscription until they win it. We will be making those announcements at the end of the broadcast live on air. But let's head back to circuit side then and talk a little bit about our schedule for today. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 4 minutes time, we head into our maiden qualifying session for the season, 10 minutes in duration at 8 o'clock this evening. After that, we'll then be heading to the grid, and it will be a 60-minute feature race at 8 this evening, where we'll get to see all our drivers out there looking to give their all. Now, keep in mind as we come into this season, there is plenty of change afoot, albeit the format has not changed. The rules and regulation have not changed. So why exactly am I saying that there is plenty of change afoot? Well, for the simple reason, all these GT3 machines you see out on circuit, they have been completely overhauled when it comes to their tyre and their aero models. Put all that together as we see the sparks fly there from the Undertress Sun Derbyshire's Corvette Z06 GT3, and the point being in the fact that we have a complete reset when it comes to the knowledge and experience that our drivers will bring to the table in these GT3 machines. Only a couple of weeks ago we saw an absolutely brilliant update come to iRacing which completely changed the aero and tyre models for these cars, and it does mean now that our drivers have to be a little bit more sensitive in terms of warming the tyres up, but once they are in the zone they can push them a bit more aggressively, and the most important thing is if a driver has a huge spin or a slide, it's no longer as common that we do see the tyres start to fall off the proverbial cliff and they can't be recovered from it. Indeed, the tyres have a lot more leeway in them when you do make a mistake, and that could be critical. But speaking of a man who's making no mistakes today, and he's new on the grid for this season, we do have DDK Racing Team's Ruben Behrings. And well, coming into this round, I do believe only 24 hours beforehand, he got married. So firstly, big congratulations to Ruben on getting married. And well, normally most married individuals would proceed to spend the rest of their weekend, if not the next few days, with their partner, perhaps on a honeymoon. However, Ruben, not quite so. So he's spending his honeymoon racing in his Audi R8 Evo 2 on the iRacing Simulator platform. And well, the commitment there is absolutely staggering, no doubt about it. But congratulations to the new married man, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do today, and perhaps he can put on an impressive show for his partner who may be watching. But indeed, very happy for Ruben there, and all the DDK Racing Team are, and indeed I think the wider paddock will be as well. But not just going to the married man, we've got plenty of other drivers out there. Let's talk a bit about them, and you'll be noticing for this season we do have 4 slightly changed classes in terms of their names. We still have the Elite class, that remains in its current format. Those are the drivers on the time tower who have the black background against their names, the black stripe, and you'll see the black background against the door number on their cars. You have the pros that return, they will have the light blue. Oh, goodness me, that's a big shunt to the wall there from Paul Bus in the rookie class McLaren 720S Evo GT3, and well, between the pros and rookies, we do have the AMS with the green background, with the rookies having the red background there, and some slight change of name, but still the same commonality, which is you've got 4 classes of GT3 machines out there in terms of driver classes, and they're all competing in their own class championships. As we do say hello there to a number of you, also the YouTube chat, and some of you talking about Ruben Behrings' priorities, and well, also Sean Cranley Swash there, we say hello to, say shortest marriage ever, quite jokingly. We also say hello there to Edith Olcom, and well, I hope you're doing well, Edith, and well, I believe that's how I say your name. We'll get it right the second time. As Bruce makes his way around, a newcomer to the grid, and we look very much forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the rookie class there. He looks to be the fastest, at least in practice, but practice makes perfect, but in qualifying, that's where you've got to get the job done. But as we do come to Daniel Shilcock, he returns to the grid there in the Porsche 911 GT3 992 machine, and he's in the 270 car here as he winds his way on through the long left-hander, and we're coming out to turn number 7, only 30 seconds to go, and we will be heading into qualifying. And when we do, of course, that's where it's all going to matter in terms of setting the best possible lap over the distance as he just gradually winds his way on through. But as he does so here, I think now the attention more turning to cooling himself down slightly, but he does have to do it in anger. And well, it'll be those first laps that are going to be absolutely critical. But remember, we do have that new tyre model, and we'll talk more about how that changes qualifying in particular very shortly. As without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head into our 10-minute qualifying session. So it is go, go, go for 10 minutes of qualifying, and we are back. We do have to briefly step away when we transition to qualifying, and that is a safety consideration to avoid any potential spoilers on the broadcast, because every so often what can happen as we go from practice to qualifying is our qualifying timing tower decides to be a little bit cheeky and show all the final qualifying laps before anybody set foot on the circuit. We don't want any spoilers here, so we're doing our best to avoid them wherever possible, and that's why we do have the little mechanisms behind the scenes, and that's why we go to a Be Right Back screen. But as we're back right now then, let's come into qualifying. Firstly, a new tyre model. What does this mean for qualifying? Well, normally in qualifying, what we normally see, many a driver will go out there on an outlap, they'll push the tyre quite hard. Ryan Davies being one of many drivers who do so as he makes his way around there in the very colourfully liveried Empire Motorsport McLaren 720S Evo. And come the end of that initial flying lap, the tyres are already nicely warmed up. You perhaps need one banker lap in order to get them optimally in the zone, and it's go, go, go. You can just attack the lap for the remainder of qualifying, so long as you don't have a big slide or a spin, and that will completely disintegrate the tyre. Now, we've seen the model completely change, whereby it normally takes the best part of the out lap plus the initial 2 to 3 fast laps to get the tyre into the optimum temperature window, depending on the circuit, particularly the length of the circuit and how aggressive the circuit is on tyre wear. And then, on the final 1 to 2 laps of qualifying, that's where you get your best possible time. So that is where things are completely shaken up when it comes to qualifying, in the fact that right now our drivers really will need to be out there lap after lap delivering. They cannot afford to be either committed to only 1 or 2 laps and that's it. They've got to go out there and they've got to get the tyre absolutely lined up, get the right amount of fuel as well to do all 5 laps and nail it by the very end. And as we do see Niels Bakoj making his way on through there, and I do believe I might be pronouncing his name incorrectly there, Balcage. There we go, that's a little bit better. And well, I'm surely going to butcher a few names over the course of this season, and if any of our drivers are watching this, I'm sure they'll tell me afterwards, and I'll be very grateful if they can tell me, no, you completely butchered my name, please get it right next time. But that's all part and parcel of the fun here, as we do welcome so many newcomers to this grid. Now, with the tyre model changes and the aero model changes, this also means that there has been a complete shake-up with regards to what cars you are seeing on the grid. Many of you may remember in the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League that we had only weeks ago, we did see a lot of GT3 drivers in the Acura and the Porsche 911. Well, we've got complete car variety here. The only car we are missing here today for our 48 entrants out of our 60 entrants in total is the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, but otherwise you've got at least one of all other GT3 machines, from the Corvette through to the Mustang, the 2 brilliant American machines, the McLaren of course, and we've got one of many here for Casper Tunstead. You've also got Porsches, you've got Mercedes, you've even got a BMW out there in the form of Slow and Steady Racing's Alex Brown. Yes, we're not kidding you, we have got a BMW out here. One of the cars that's not been that popular in recent seasons on the iRacing service. It's been, some call it a very boring car to drive, some refer to it as the car that's boring until it snaps and it becomes incredibly exciting, but you can never get it back. But right now, Alex Brown and a number of drivers decided to brave it, another one being Christopher Bates out there. And here is Bates, the rookie driver, and well, we look forward to seeing what he can do in the number 35, a bit of an all-grey machine there. But we've got a whole variety of cars out here, and therefore with this shake-up, it means that we're definitely going to see car variety add the spice and the variety of life to the racing over 10 rounds, and therefore we'll really get to see the balance of performance in full action from week in, week out, and who's going to be the one who can conquer the circuits. And indeed, with 10 very different circuits, it means a mixture of cars is only going to shake up that action. But as we do see there, shake from side to side, still trying to get some tyre temperature in the car is Bates. Will roll on his way on through. In terms of previous champions from the GT3 League Season 14, well, I believe you may have 1 or 2 of them on the grid, but in fact, it really is a big reset for this season as well. Many of you may remember in Season 14, we had 5 classes, with Diamond going the way, our top class of Geraldo Strutatus. A brilliant season of racing for him. In the Platinum class, we had Justus Stakiokas become your champion, and I believe we may see him on the grid a bit later on in the season, unless I'm misremembering the entry list. In Gold class, it was Team Modig, who I don't think is back on the grid for this season. In the Silver class, we had Nathan Anstis take victory, and I believe we'll be seeing Nathan on the grid a little bit later on the season. And in the Bronze class, well, you had myself, your commentator, take the Bronze class championship in a season-long battle. And well, I can tell you one thing, one of my rivals from that season is back on the grid here, and he's racing the AM class, and here is Neil Kenyon as he roars his way on through and in towards the second of 2 hairpins. And well, it's great to see Neil out there again. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, an absolutely ferocious driver out there, and well, deciding to go from mid-engine rear-wheel drive in his previous season, the GT3 Championship. Now from the Porsche 992, he stayed with the German marks, but he's decided to make his way then into the Mercedes AMG Evo 2022 machine. And we'll change the machinery here, but he'll be hoping that a little bit of 6.3 litre V8 grunt up front that's naturally aspirated is going to be the thing that takes him to a championship title, and we look forward to seeing what he is going to be able to do. As he roars his way on down, well, we've got some initial lap times coming in for our drivers, and I think we are going to get an onboard or 2 with our drivers in this qualifying session in short order. And well, the best way to get a great onboard lap is to take a look to one of our elite drivers, and we're going to come to the NJB machine of Daniel Stazuk as he heads on down past pit lane entry and heads on to another flying lap here in the Acura NSX Evo 22. But as he does so, we bring out the dashboard, and at 174 miles an hour top speed, he heads into the braking zone here for turn number 1. Now, trail braking is wound down using all the entry road there, plenty more as well. That's just about legal as he rolls his way on through, and now flat out will go through turns 2 and 3 here, straight in between the 2 apexes before he heads into the braking zone for turn number 4. Hard on the brakes here, letting the car roll down to second gear, and as he does so now, gets the nose pointed round and back on the throttle here. You can see the confidence he has in the car as he uses the rotation of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machine in order to get the apex he wants. Into turn 5, and here it's going to be flat out. Now the tyres are nice and warm before bringing the car hard over to the left-hand side, down to the brakes there for turn number 6. Letting the car drop all the way to second gear, but very gradually bring that gearbox down so as not to cause the rear of the car to lift up where the engine goes on downshift and over revs. He now makes his way into turn number 7, onto the brakes again, down to second gear there at the apex, just to give himself a little bit more rotation, but battling with a bit of power oversteered there as he now brakes his way around and up towards turn number 8 he goes, and here it's flatter all the way through. So he gets a bit of a breather at this point, and after a good infield section, the big question you may be asking right now is what else can he do? Well, he's gone the fastest of everybody in Sector 1, and his Sector 2 has been a personal improvement, as has his Sector 3, so therefore he's now got to deliver through the bus stop chicane in order to try and make it a perfect lap. So onto the brakes, he'll go for 174 miles now, bringing it all the way down to 5th gear initially, and now down to 4th gear, and over the apex, now flat out again, all the way through the bank in there, absolutely pinpoint precise was Stazuk heading through the bus stop chicane, but now he's got to hope he's done enough here, and if he's on a good lap, what he'll do, he'll keep the car nice and low, he'll shorten the circumference of which he's driving through, all the way to that timing line, and this could be a sign of commitment here. They're not allowed to drop below that yellow line, as we understand it, whether it be in qualifying or race conditions, unless by emergency, and as Stazuk heads to the timeline, what's it going to be here? Well, it's going to be a provisional pole. It's a 43.281, and well, will he be pipped to the post? He's got one more lap to go, and it's been close between him and Pavel Dolzal so far, and well, we do welcome Dolzal to the grid, and newcomer. We've also got James Palsland new to the grid. We've got plenty of new names in the elite class, all across our classes we have, and it's great to see so many new drivers on the grid, and that's a whole injection of new blood. But also all drivers all the way around. Well, it was none other and then our drivers all absolutely on the attack here in qualified so far, as we say hello to Chris Edisford in the YouTube chat, and also to Ruben Behrens there, who says thanks guys with regards to the mention of the congratulations for his marriage, but also the joke of the fact it must be one of the shortest lived marriages if you jump back on the simulator immediately. But to be fair, you don't always need to have your honeymoon straight after your marriage there. Trust me, I know from speaking to a few friends. And well, as our drivers roar the way around through turn number 1, well, right now Pavel Dolzar currently 4th of everybody, and speaking of where does everybody sit, here at the overall standings, your top 35, and with 2 minutes left on the clock here, and most of our drivers on their final qualifying laps now, well, it looks like it's Stazuk who set the fastest lap overall, and in elite by almost 2 tenths over Palsland in the Acura there, Stazuk. And we have been hearing rumours down the paddock that the Acura has been the fastest car here all week in the build-up. However, looking a bit further back, currently in 5th place, is your leading pro driver of Ruben Behrens. He's enjoying himself there out in the Audi, a car that's not normally known for its straight line speed, normally more for its cornering capabilities, but he's making the good old Audi V10 roar with delight, and Joe Newman's not too far behind him at only 3 thousandths, and you've got to go all the way down to 12th place there for fellow family member Brecht Behrens. And I will have to ask the question at some point, are they brothers? Is it father and son? I don't want to quite say they're brothers at the moment, just in case I get it wrong. And Brecht right now, the other member of the Behrens family, doing very well here to take provisional pole potentially in the AM class, but from him you then got to go all the way down to 23rd place to Richard Jones, who's put the car in the pit lane, and he's your fastest rookie driver out there. He's now dropped to 24th, with Zander Hill moving up to 11th, Sam Derbyshire moves up to 4th. We've got a lot of exchanges happening here, but it looks as though qualifying is practically complete, ladies and gentlemen, and well, the checker flag is out, because that means all the drivers who are on laps at the moment, they will very soon need to complete them, as otherwise qualifying will be done and dusted. And well, the checker flag definitely be waving furiously, and when they get to 10 minutes on that clock, it is all over for qualifying. They do not get any extra time, they get no overtime, and it does mean for all drivers they've got to get the job done sooner rather than later. And Charles Philippes making his way right now through the bus stop chicane with 20 seconds left on the clock. I don't think he's going to make it, but he's going to give it a shot in the 6.2 litre V8 machine, that Corvette Z06, in order to see if he can get round, but it's not going to work out, and he is on a personal best here, but he's not going to be able to get it into the qualifying period, so therefore it means that he'll be starting 19th at best, subject to all of his laps counting. But with that, ladies and gents, but qualifying is complete, we need to head to the grid and see how they all line up for the first of our races for this season. So as all the drivers make the way onto the grid then, how do they line up for our season opener? Well, your top 10 is as follows. It's your elite pole sitter of Daniel Stazuk for NJB Performance. He's joined on the front row by Paceworks Esports James Palsland. Well done to Stazuk and taking the maiden pole of the season. It's then going to be Stuart Reynolds who starts third for Fury Simsport ahead of your pro pole sitter. Oh, what a qualifying performance from him in the Audi. Ruben Behrens there for DDK with Race Anywhere. We then do have his teammate just behind of Sam Derbyshire with none other than Pavel Dozar completing your your top 6 for Paceworks Esports. Joe Newman starts today 7th for Altitude 3M Esports ahead of Austin William Campbell for Effect Simulations, and then it will be the pairing of Milton Tomlinson Dennis and Krista Halzoy who complete your top 10. The Tractix Racing driver there having a great start to his qualifying season, and he's one driver always to watch out for. He's normally had a lot of bad luck in qualifying, but he makes his way out for the order rather rapidly. Then on row number 6, it will be best the rest of the length, Ryan Davies ahead of Nils Buckage, and from the German driver MJB Performance, it will then be Tiki Simsports Zander Hill. Then we're going to come to Tobias Kruken, who starts 14th for Thorpec Precision Racing, head of none other than Brett Bearings for DDK Digital Motor Art, and Casper Brotner for Old Dudes and Cars completes your top 16. On row number 9, it will be the Welshman from UK Sim Racing, Asai Anthony, and then it will be the New Zealander of Effect Simulations, Simon Bamber, with your top 20 being completed by Giles Philippes from Belgium for DDK Race Anywhere, and we'll have Darren Sharples completing that top 20 for Old Dudes and Cars. On row number 11, we'll then have Sean Cranny Swash going to the Audi there in the Pigeon Racing Machine, and he'll be in the company of fellow driver of Jack Barker. These two will be going toe-to-toe, much like they did in the multi-class league, and we'll see the Made for Racing drive being followed up by Racing Forces Darryl Norquette, with your pole sitter none other than Richard Jones there. Well done to him. That's a staggering pole lap. He starts 24th for SAS Racing. We then have Daniel Shilcock started 25th for Tractix Racing ahead of Christian Maltrek for Fisher Motorsport. Behind him, it's going to be the pairing of Peter Duke for DDK with Digital Motor Art and Neil Kenyon for UK Sim Racing, with your top 30 completed by Casper Tunstead and Daniel Pays for Old Dudes and Cars. Outside the top 30, let's not forget about them. You've got James Conley for UK Sim Racing ahead of DWR with Sim Coach setups, and that is going to be none other and Jeffrey Damon. We then have Steve Hughes and Simon Cheshire lined up on row number 17 ahead of BJ Alvarez and Rob Windsor, with row number 19 going the way of Alistair Murray and Pavel Bruce, and your top 40 is completed by Nathan Foster and Thomas Helmer. We've got a few more rows on the grid to go, bear with us, because then we do see Simon Hartley and none other than, I do believe, John Lee Jones on row number 21 ahead of the pairing of Dan Oliver Fox and Darren Giacovelli, and then we'll have Stuart Pearson and Christopher Bates on your final row of the grid to make it a 48-car lineup. Well, that is an absolutely packed grid, but the grid is almost all its way around to the start-finish line. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we need to look down to the very front of the field, and as it gradually trickles its way on around, well, Daniel Stuzza, he'll look down there and he'll see the pace car will pull off shortly, and he'll be to take us to the green for our first 60 minutes of racing action here in the UK Sim Racing GT3 League Season 15. And it's go, go, go. Stazza immediately launches. You can see Powson was starting to come down as they went green flag racing. He knew what was up, and they roar the way then, and the championship gets underway. But as they head into the braking zone, well, the top three all together, a big squirming moment there for Derbyshire as they come on down. He keeps it together for now as the rest of the field now muscles its way on down. Everyone here deciding to try and take places where they can. It's 2 wide at the best of times here, 3 wide if you're feeling fortunate, but it looks like all the drivers have safely made it through the opening 3 corners. Oh, goodness me, we've got multiple drivers taking rallycross lines there, including, I believe, our pro pole sitter of Bearings. We'll have to try and understand what's happened to them shortly, as that as well as Neil Kenyon who's escorted his way across the grass. We're going to have to get a replay of some of those where we can, but there's early drama early on. We just caught that at the side of our camera. But as all the drivers make the way down, well, those who have been able to survive a difficult start, well, now they're trying to make a bit of progress. As Tobias Kruken here, now into 9th place in the elite class, already up into 11th, is making some more progress. He's got Xander Hill right behind him. You can see all of the drivers right now trying to nurse their way through cold tyres at first, and that's the biggest change for this season, is dealing with the fact they're going to have much colder tyres than what they're used to. Oh no, and that is Richard Jones has gone around. The pole sitter is into the barrier there, the rookie pole sitter I should say. Let's get it right in class. Well, he's gone around into the barrier. I think he was escorted off the road there, and well, he's going to rejoin, but that completely shakes things up, and suddenly Pavel Bruce has found himself all the way up into 22nd place overall, but your rookie leader as he rolls his way around the banking of turn number 7. You couldn't make this up, but as he comes down towards the bus stop chicane, there's still more to come, no doubt about it, and will we get any stability before this open lap is done? I'm sure we will at some point. We've had multiple drivers have to tow to the pit lane, including Peter Duke, also Richard Jones, and well, and debut for Peter Duke, one to forget unfortunately, He's had a lot of bad luck in the GT3 championships he's raced in so far this season as that. Hold up a second, who's that pointing the wrong way? That's James Conley. Well, you can't park it there. He's going to have to get that off the grass quickly, but as he makes his way through, we go to the yard trimmings, but that's going to be a long way down the order. But after one lap and all the drama in the opening lap, will things calm down? I get the feeling it'll take a couple more, whereas Daniel Stazza, who leads overall in the elite class, ahead of James Palsland in second. Then we have Stuart Reynolds in third, ahead of Pavel Dolzal. Sam Derbyshire completes your top five in a very skittish Corvette Z06, ahead of Austin William Campbell. Then we have your leading pro driver, Joe Newman in seventh, ahead of Milton Tomlinson Dennis, and then it'll be Nils Bakaj, and your top 10 completed by Tobias Kruken. We then come to your second pro driver, that's Ryan Davies, but you've got to go a long way back to find your leading AM driver, and that's Brett Bearings, who's found his way on pole position. We're still holding on to that leading class as he comes down to the braking zone here for the second of the two hairpins, and he's looking to get a bit aggressive versus Simon Bamber, but that aggression's not going to help him out if he goes that deep. Wrong off the apex and brings it on around, but that's going to put him too wide versus Philip Hertz, his teammate, and immediately lets it go there. No, it's not worth it, but hold up a second. That's, oh no! That's Dan Oliver Fox coming across the grass and immediately into the side of, was that Jack Barker? I think it was, and Barker's car completely totaled into the barrier, and his race will be in tatters there. And well, that's a complete surprise, not a welcome one to be certain, and it hasn't rained here, I could assure you, but that grass right now, it's almost as if it's an ice rink. As soon as you end up on it, you just slide off the circuit there, and I can imagine that's gone wrong for one of the two drivers at the King, and Barker was just an innocent party. But we are definitely going to have to get a replay of everything that's happened at the start, and we are going to be getting that shortly, and in fact we might be able to get a replay of the race start in very short order indeed. It has been an absolutely crazy start, and without further ado, here is a replay, ladies and gentlemen, to explain everything that seems to have happened. Now this was the race start, and well, we did see the pace car pull away and immediately everybody went hunting. Now as they did, well, who were the big drivers in all of the madness? Well, we'll have to wait and see exactly who had the off track. Ruben Bearings was one of the biggest losers right at the start, in the fact that he had the massive off, and where was he in all of it? Well, as all the drivers made the way down into the braking zone, this was Ruben Bearings. Well, camera picks him up, and what exactly happened? We got caught on the curb there on the exit turn number 2 and just ends up escorting himself well off the road. And well, in doing so, as we also saw there, go very wrong. And who was that for the Corvette? I think that was Krista Halsoy getting knocked off the circuit. Well, Bearings in the end rolling as well circuit. We also had a bit more drama. Can we get a little bit more of what happened? We go to Neil Kenyon here. What happened to him? So this was the Mercedes driver making his way out of turn number 1. And there was definitely a lot that went wrong. A few drivers ended up busting their way through. Oh, could this be Kenyon there being ejected off the road as well? And well, I believe that might have been a bit of netcode contact because there's no car quite close to him, albeit our replay camera might be deceiving us. Pavel Bruce almost had a bit of a disastrous start as well. He was too wide there with his teammate, and coming out of turn number 1, what happened here? Car was shaky one way, then the other, and in the end just takes way too much speed for turn 2 and decides to take a bit of a rally approach, gets it back together however, and just in time. And well, that could definitely have been tears, but not quite so for him. And well, we did see Krista Halsoy get a bit of an ejection off the circuit, and a bit later this happened to Dale Norquette. And well, for Norquette, he was battling side by side with the old two-seat cars number 11. The kink, cold tyres, goes round there, and oh no, and that was Richard Jones. That was Jones going with him, I believe. And well, that explains everything that happened. There was a slow and steady racing car, and then what on earth happened to the rest of the field there? Can we get on board with somebody a bit further back? I think we can, and this was on board with Jeffrey Damon at the time. Now, what happened? So it all starts to go wrong in front of him, and Jeffrey Damon in the end having to put the brakes on through the kink, the car lifting over the rear. That's what happens with mid-engine rear-wheel drive, or in the Porsche's case, rear-engine rear-wheel drive. You just end up lifting off the throttle and putting the brake on, and it causes the car to completely snap, and will everybody involved in a bit of a nightmare moment there. This was one of the exterior cameras. In fact, I think we might be able to see a blimp view, and well, you see the incident on the left-hand side of your screen, and everyone came into the scene, and some drivers lifting off, some putting the brakes on, some just powering through it, and on cold tyres. It really was early drama there, no matter where you looked. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the chaos that happened on the open lap, and then we do need to take a look at what happened to Jack Barker with regards to his incident on lap number 2, and here it is, and then we'll come back to your live racing. And this was Barker just minding his own business, I believe. Oh no, it wasn't. In fact, Barker having a big moment there. Oh, goodness me, we got it back together, so I think he was breathing a big sigh of relief, but little did he know what was to come his way only later around the corner. And as he got himself back together, well, in 3, 2, 1, enter from stage left, you're going to see, there it is, a big shunt for Jack Barker, and well, very unfortunate there, and well, the timing could not have been more horrendous, but that was the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen, and let's head back to your racing action. Well, as we come back to all the racing, it was a dramatic opening couple of laps, no doubt about it. But we do return to the racing. As we do, we are on to lap number 5 shortly. Indeed, we have been so intense in the replays there. We've missed a couple of laps, but everyone now starting to settle down into a little bit of rhythm. Now, you may be wondering, okay, we're tracking by a lap at the top centre of your screen, but this is a timed race of 60 minutes. We will keep you updated as to laps. Unfortunately, a technical limitation we have means that we cannot give you the timer at the top centre of your screen. It resets itself every so often because we are looking at a replay file, so we'll keep you abreast. But right now, don't worry about the laps. We've got plenty of race distance to go and plenty of action to come with it. And speaking of some racing action here, Casper Brockner started to get a little bit adventurous there as he peaks one way, then he peaks the other way, but he can't find a way in quite now. But he'll definitely be looking to try and make a move here on Daniel Shilcock, and that will be to try and move into 5th place in the Pro category. But he's going to be a little bit more aggressive under braking, but then again, we do know that Porsche, based on its balance of points, much better on the brakes compared to the Mercedes, and the Mercedes being a very big brute of a car by comparison, and therefore will be very keen to try and find a way to outpace the Porsche that normally struggles on top end speed, albeit if it's got the tyre of another car, it can work out. That's not to say the Porsche can't be fast in the straights, but you normally have to sacrifice a lot of rear wing in order to do so. At Daytona, most drivers will be running a minimum rear wing. If our Porsche drivers were thinking about adding 1 or 2 clicks of rear wing onto the car, that will definitely cause them to lose a lot of pace compared to the likes of the Mercedes. But as everybody continues to roar his way on around, and we do say hello there to Gina Peters in the YouTube chat, who something tells me that with regards to he did ask for permission, that would be with regards to Ruben Behrings having permission to race after his wedding. And well, Gina, if you do happen to be Ruben's new partner, I'm going to make that guess there, but if I'm wrong, please correct me so. But congratulations to you both. We also say hello to Brett Behrings there, who says to answer the question, we are brothers. We'll do appreciate that. But as we also say hello to Sam Lloyd, who cheers on Pavel Bruce today, and Slight Anthony there talking about the instance in the opening couple of laps. Well, as everybody now moving on forward, and Pavel Bruce really, like it's been mentioned there, flying high on the open lap, avoiding all the chaos, almost end up in a bit of an altercation with his teammate, but in the end only find a bit of grass to trim. Well, taking those grass trimmings with him, I think he'll be very grateful for as the sparks fly from the under trail of the car. But with everything that's going on, Simon Bamber, let's come back towards the front of the field, and we look to our class classifications for now. And with Bamber here still fighting with Zonda Hill and Ryan Davies. These two swapping places. Davies moved up into 2nd in Pro class, and these two really forming the 2nd big pack of cars. They roll the way around, and well, it looks so there. Bamber deciding, you know what, he doesn't want to let Hill play the game of working with the other member of his class, and Bamber wants to become a little bit of an interrupter here. And well, I think in good time, because he wants to try and chase after Buckage and also Kruken, who are starting to pull away by 3.5 seconds up the road, and those are the elite drivers he wants to go play business with. But as we do see there, Charles Phillip Ayres coming down onto the brakes of the Corvette for turn number 6. We're going a bit deep there, chasing after the back of Zonda Hill. He'll look for a way in, and Brett Behrings, his teammate, but Am driver behind, we're just watching on here and hoping that the two DDK Racing Team teammates do not hold each other up, and indeed they can make progress, because it's not too far away before you get to your 2nd place man in the AM class of Sean Cranny-Swash, and this Audi definitely seems to be a car that he's invested quite happily in as he makes his way along. And the Pigeon Racing Machine right now, very colourful livery at that, and well, he'll be feeling quite colourful as he charges his way onwards here and looking at to potentially see gold on the car when it comes to victory at the end of the day if he can catch up to Behrings. But Behrings is still 3.2 seconds up the road and just gradually holding time and distance. So we see a bit of a mistake there for Casper Brockner. Has to trim the inside of the apex of turn number 10. That's going to cost him some time. That's going to give him off track as well. It might even give him an automated slowdown. And in fact, he goes high there in order not to block the rest of the field and let them go through. But the only problem is here, the fact that if the field can't get the tyre of each other, then they will all lose time to the pack in front. And that's the difficult part of Daytona. You are racing as packs. Imagine the Tour de France, or alternatively the Spanish equivalent, which I always eludes my name whenever I think of it live on the broadcast. But the idea being here that you all want to work together with the drivers around you to try and gain the pack in front and lose the pack behind. And those who work together well, those are the ones who will make all the time up. And well, with everything that's happened at the start of this race, I can imagine a lot of drivers will be keen to try and make up some time. Speaking of making up time here, Jordan Lee Jones right now, he's got Alex Brown only 1.5 seconds in front of him, but he goes high there to release, does the AM driver, there's the rookie driver, he releases the AM driver of Neil Kenyon, who goes on through, and Kenyon up the inside there, and that is going to be an obligatory, look, let's work together here, so I need to chase after the slow and steady racing BMW, and Alex Brown there right now, just gradually trying to run away, as Kenyon, meanwhile, will try and pull Jordan Lee Jones up to him, and well, these two will work together there, and indeed, for Jordan, he's going to be thinking, okay, Kenyon might be able to help me get right into the fight. As everyone continues to push onwards, we do look from in the midfield right to the front of the field, and this is where things get very interesting if your name is Daniel Stazzo. Now you might be thinking, well, why is it going to get interesting? Well, the point is he doesn't have a slipstream in front of him. He's got no driver to work with. So therefore, he doesn't have the option of fuel saving in the draft of another car. He can still fuel save, however, by simply lifting off the throttle about 50 to 25 metres before his braking point, and therefore just letting the car gradually slow itself. The downside of this is what it does to the rest of the pack behind, because if he starts to take his foot off the gas, the rest of the pack behind in the tow will gain even more quickly. However, I think James Powsland here is definitely doing the right thing, which is he's lifting off the throttle in turn in the tow in order to help himself save fuel, but also not get too close and not trigger what we call in motorsport as the concertina effect, where the car in front brakes or slows down and the car behind has to brake or slow down a bit before it normally would, and the car behind that has to do the same, but even earlier. You get the picture. And all of these drivers right now will fuel save off the back of each other, with the target for Powsland, Dolzal and Reynolds that they will all save enough fuel to leapfrog Stoessel in the pit lane, but they don't want to save or let the pace go too slow that you let the Corvette of Sam Derbyshire and then a little bit further back of Tomlinson Dennis get close enough to bring their packs or just themselves into that mix. So it's an interesting game here, because Stoessel has the ability to choose the pace of the race, but Powsland, Dolzal and Reynolds will all try and say to him, or they'll give him messages essentially, if he's going too slow, they'll want to get to the head of the pack, but when they do, they can't fuel saving in all these packs. That is what you'll see happen here. Drivers will set a pace at the front of it, and then so the drivers behind to decide, is the guy in front of me going fast enough? And if so, I'll hang with him. And if he's not going fast enough, do I overtake him but then risk not having a tow? But speaking of battles, meanwhile, well, these two didn't get the message, because that's Maltrek battling with Sean Cranley-Swash, and we can see the pro driver there making the move on the AM driver, and well, that will be for overall position 18th, and the idea being here for the Maltrek, he'll get close to Casper Brotner and look to try and make a little bit more forward motion. But we've got a bit of drama happening further down the order. We've had a bit of a moment for Darian Giacobelli, and I believe we might be able to replay to explain what exactly happened to him. Well, here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen, and this was Darian Giacobelli only months ago in the number 30 Porsche. Now, coming down to turn number 1, easy to get it wrong. Goes a bit deep there, does the rookie driver in the rear, just lets go a little bit too much speed. Does he get it held in the right direction? Yes, he does, and he gets off the racing line there. So well done to Darian for catching that one. Not the easiest catch, but to be fair, absolutely nailed it. Come back to your live racing then, well, still plenty of distance to go, and the grand total laps we are expecting based on lap times of fuel will be 35 laps in total. So we are on lap number 9 of what is expected to be 35, so we've got a long way to go, and as we do, everyone's settling down into the racing, and well, one man who right now may not be able to settle is the man who is your pro pole sitter of Ruben Bearings. He makes his way around the outside of Darren Sharples there. Sharples not fighting that too hard in the old duty cars McLaren. He knows they're not in the same class, but the point being that Bearing's very keen to try and catch up to some of his fellow pro drivers. Given he was the pole sitter, you'd imagine on paper that he'll feel confident that he can be the man who could potentially win this. However, he's got a long way to go. His next target will be none other than Christian Maltrek, who's in 18th place, so 4 places ahead of him. A long way out the road as well, and that time delta is not easy to bring on down here for the reasons we described with the pack style racing. But coming from them to a bit of a battle, this is Alex Brown versus Jordan Lee Jones, and I believe also with them that is a car that is a lap down. That's number 77, and that is Peter Duke, who they're trying to put a lap on here, as Duke right now definitely not making it easy. He doesn't want to release the place, he doesn't want a 4 lap down. I think he wants to try and work with these guys because he is a faster driver based on the qualifying times, but Duke's in that frustrating situation whereby, because of what happened at the start of the race, he has been relegated to almost a lap down under them, as we do see there. Jordan Lee Jones and Nathan Foster robbing Alex Brown of places, coming through the hairpin, and I think Brown will be a little bit frustrated at that one, given the fact he got too close to the back of Duke under braking into turn 6, and Lee Jones and Foster just deciding, you know what, we're just going to take that and we'll run with it. But Brown's got to not let it get to him. Instead, what he's got to do here is just tuck back in and realise, okay, now you're the 4th man in the pack, and therefore you've got the triple toe in front of you, and you use that to bring yourself right back up into the equation. But easier said than done, of course. As a racing driver, you always want to be out front wherever possible, but sometimes you've got to put your smart head on and forget everything that's happened before you and realise that sometimes being the guy at the back of the pack is actually a good thing. But speaking of drivers who right now continue to run their pack, we come from the midfield back to the front of the pack, and Daniel Stoessel still leading as we look back from the rear of the leading Acura and the NJB Performance 733. Well, we did have it on paper, at least, based on the research we'd done beforehand, that the Acura was going to be the car to beat here, but right now it would seem that the Mercedes AMG Evos are no slouches when it comes to staying with the American machine as they roll the way around the Florida circuit. coming on through there. You can see the rather chunky grille of that Mercedes AMG of James Powellsland looking menacing, albeit losing a little bit down the initial acceleration, but it will gain in the toe now. I think it is the Acura's. They've got the straight line exit speed, but once they start to get to the higher speeds, of course, the toe begins to balance everything out. We're very interested to see what happens when Powellsland and Studs at reverse positions, should they do so, where you would imagine that the Mercedes driver leading the race. Will we see the Acura be as quick behind, if not quicker, given the rumoured pace it's got? Out of the bus stop chicane they go. All four drivers there just staying together. They are dropping Derbyshire. Derbyshire now down by the best part of 2.1 seconds to the back of Reynolds. So his top four is gradually sauntering off into the distance, and they don't want anybody else to become part of the pack. Coming back then to our drivers a bit further down towards the bottom end of the top 10 and into the top 15, we do see Ryan Davies and Xander Hill here, the second and third place pro drivers. They've got Brett Behrens behind them, the leading AM driver, and then we have Giles Philippe and Daniel Schilcock in pursuit. And well, Schilcock right now at the back of this and adding a bit of different colour because it is a very green and black field, this one, and in Sunny you do have a good old splash of purple and white. And well, as he brings variety in terms of both car choice and also coloration, well, here he's going to be bringing up quite a big toe, but again, riding on board. Let's listen in. And he's going to go around the outside here. I thought he was going to lift off and go for a bit of fuel saving, but Schilcock goes on around and just about squeezes in there. It's not over yet either. That's brave from Schilcock. Oh no, and there's a bit of contact between himself and none other than Behrens. And in the end, it's going to be Philippe who closed up behind. Oh, that could have been curtains between them, but it wasn't quite. But goodness me, that was close. And we can see a flash of lights there from both Schilcock and Philippe. Both of them aggrieved at the driver in front of them. And I think Schilcock there will be breathing a big sigh of relief that his contact with Behrens did not end up with him on the inside wall. But as the two make the way through, it's close racing, but of course at those speeds with the direction change, these cars become very light, particularly when the engine's towards the rear of the car, where his front engine rear-wheel drive can be a bit of a different story, but they've all survived it now as they head onto the exit of the infield, but rolling the way on out. Well, meanwhile, one thing that's rolled the wrong way, I believe we've had a bit of an error for John Lee Jones, as we do see Reese Kitely there, or Kitley I should say, not the E in the right place, Kitley, not Kitely, and as he comes out of turn number 4 and in towards 5, he's just lost the place to Richard Jones, these two being a lap down the leaders, and I believe a bit of an error there at the hairpin, at the Horseshoe International hairpin, cost him deep as he runs very deep there at turn number 6, brings it back together thereabouts, and he's got the right lines, he just needs to bring it together. As behind him, hold up, is that Jeff Gordon behind him in 31st place? That's Stuart Pearson, no, that's not Stuart Pearson, but that was definitely a Jeff Gordon liveried Ford, and I believe, well no, in fact it is a UK Sim Racing Ford, but the colours on it made me think it was Jeff Gordon machine. Goodness me, I'm going to need to get my eyes tested. And well, right now Steve Hughes making his way onwards as Alistair Murray follows after Stuart Pearson as they battle over 5th in the rookie class. And well, the Sloan Steve BMW versus the UK Sim Racing Mercedes here. And that Mercedes, it's closing, but not at a rapid rate. It is missing the front bumper, however, and that might be costing a bit of straight line speed. He gets there in the end, but decides not to go for it. And understandably, for the simple reason there's no real point going for the movement to bus stop chicane. You may as well stay close and then look for it on the exit here. As we ride on board, look at the poor run there, and Alistair Murray losing so much time as he exits the corner. And in fact, it's a slowdown penalty there for Pearson. That's going to drop him gradually behind. He lifts off the throttle to serve it. They do have only 30 seconds or so to serve it before it gets translated from an automated slowdown penalty into a black flag and therefore a drive-through penalty. So Murray will take the place, and well, as you can see, they're coming up through behind them. That is going to be the 59 McLaren. That's Simon Cheshire, who's a further lap down, who wants to try and get involved here and get a lap back on these drivers. But as they all swap places, the 3 rookie drivers here all step on each other's toes and making it difficult for themselves, but that's how motorsport goes. From them, let's look to an elite driver here who's also got a step on the toes of a few drivers in the Pro and also the AM classes. And this is Casper Tunstead, rolling his way out to turn number 6 and up the rise he goes. And as he does right now, the elite driver going toe-to-toe with Ruben Behrens, and well, on paper at least, you would imagine that Tunstead will tuck in behind Behrens because Behrens is the faster driver in qualifying. Tunstead struggled. He put it 29th on the overall grid. Behrens put his car on 5th place in the overall grid, and well, in fact 4th place there, as we do double check our numbers. And the point being here that right now 2 very different stories, and the Audi driver trying to bring that McLaren along, and they will try to work mutually together. However, will it work out to their mutual benefit? Well, that is time to tell. But from them to 2 drivers right now who are definitely getting a bit feisty. Xander Hill versus Ryan Davies, the Tiki Sim Sport driver looking around the outside, versus the Empire Motorsport driver on the inside as they come down. That's a new Tiki Sim Sport livery as well, new for this season, I believe. And there comes Daniel Schilcock. Look working down low, and as he does, that's 3 wide, that gets very elbows out, and Shilcock there definitely not wasting any time in saying, I'm here to race, and well, in the end, a bit of great awareness there from Ryan Davies to hold the steering wheel to the right, and Shilcock here looks once, he's going to look for another, he's going all in, right now he's absolutely feeling as though he can get a 2-for-1 special here for the opening few corners, and who can blame him, and here comes Ryan Davies back at Hill as they come up towards turn number 5, it's side by side they go, and Shilcock moves into second place in Pro, but out of these two, who's going to stay in third? Well, they go for the kink there, but both have to lift off the throttle, it's not too wide flat out for the kink, and into the second hairpin, as we can see Philip Hertz also starting to look at this battle from behind, but the dirt here calls him to slide deep, and rolling on out there, they're still too wide as they come up towards turn number 7, it's non-stop between Hill and Davies, it's now going to be Hill on the inside, and surely this is going to be enough for Xander Hill to take the place. Well, you can see they look at the cutback, but here comes Charles Philip Hertz in the Corvette, now he goes for it as a front bumper ends up across the road, I'm not quite sure who that's from, we'll get a tag on that later, but as they roll on through, Shilcock's already checked out, he is the best part of 1.5 seconds up the road from this battle, but right now this is sensational racing between them as the sparks fly here at Daytona. Well, Davies looking onwards, but he's not going to get involved for the time being, but here comes Brett Behrings, and he says, can I come out and play now? And I think Ryan Davies is going to be saying, no, go away, and Behrings says, I wasn't asking, as they come on through, and it all swaps between them, and Ryan Davies suddenly drops 4 places in the space of 1 lap here. Good news is he's got plenty more laps to go, but goodness me, what a lap between them, and these pro drivers right now absolutely put it on the show. But coming from them, we look to Tomlinson Dennis versus Austin William Campbell, and we're in the battle of the double-barreled surnames. Right now, it does seem as though Tomlinson Dennis, at least, a big slide there coming out of turn number 1, but he's keeping the Effect Simulations driver at bay, and Joe Newman, the leading pro driver, is on the back of this in the Altitude 3M Mustang, and well, the 5-litre V8 absolutely running broad strokes behind its rivals. So look at the way the rear of that Mustang is sliding around there. You can tell he's got no rear wing on that car, he's only got 1 click of that, and right now, he is literally using the throttle to turn the car. Normally something you do when you're mid-engine rear-wheel drive or rear-engine rear-wheel drive, but I can imagine with the setup that he's got on that car, he's made it as oversteery as possible to gain top-line speed, and also just to get the rotation out the corners. And for a car that's normally associated with being an American battleship in terms of the Mustang, of course, America having plenty of museum battleships that are all ready and available for viewing out there. Well, right now, he definitely doesn't want to be in dockyard. The only place he wants to be is on the top step and anchor himself to the top of the podium. And I'm going to put my naval analogies away here, because otherwise I'm going to have big complaining seamen at my side shortly. And as they roar the way up towards turn number 10, heading towards the bus stop chicane, well, here comes Newman right now all over the back of William Campbell, and well, I think he's going to try and just bleed a bit of speed off there. And you see, I wonder if he's going to go for the bump draft, decides not to, and lets the Mercedes driver carry on. And I can imagine some drivers here may not want to go for the bump draft, confused about what it may do to the aero package on the cars and whether they get quite sensitive. And also bump drafting requires a lot of compliance in GT3 machines, in any machine on iRacing that is a closed wheel car. But the point being, you've got to keep the steering straight when you bump draft each other, as otherwise it can end up in tears very quickly. But right now, what's not ends up in tears is the racing at the front as we turn on to lap number 15. We've still got another 20 laps to go after this, and that means timing-wise right now, well, we are roughly somewhere around the best part of 20 minutes into the race distance. But as the drivers continue to go onwards here, it does seem as though Halsland is holding his position in second with his teammate Dolzal right behind, and well, they're 2-3. They'll be looking to turn into 1-2 before all is said and done. But these two definitely staying comfortably together as Reynolds are right behind. They're just watching on and thinking, how can I get involved if I can at all? But look into the class standings on the left-hand side of your screen, and right now, definitely all those gaps between our drivers starting to fan out a little bit in terms of the lead battles minus the elite drivers. But where is it spreading out in terms of the class lead battles for pro and rookie? The battles to be on the podium or inside the top 5 are definitely getting a bit closer, and that's only going to lead to even more intense action as we go into the pit stops. Because keep in mind, of course, one thing we talked about earlier, all the drivers will have wanted to do a lot of fuel saving, and they've got 60% fuel loads in these cars. They can't go to the end on fuel. They have to take a splash and dash. However, the less time you can spend in the pits, the better. That's understandable, that's obvious. However, if you can really cut all the time you spend in the pits by the best part of 3-4 seconds, that can enable you to leap ahead of a rival you were racing with before the pit stop, and in fact, it can put you so far ahead that you end up not having them come up behind you in the draft, as long as you can maintain the pace ahead of them. But that's the big caveat, of course, so long as you're the faster driver when you haven't got a car in front of you giving the tow, and that is where I think Pelton and Dolzal will be working together here. The idea will be if they can bring themselves close enough to the leader, save enough fuel, and then come out together out of the pit lane, and then they might be 1-2, and they'll just keep swapping the place until the final lap, and that's when the reins will come off, or the gloves will come off, and they'll go battling for victory between the two teammates. But of course, the whole aim of the game when you're racing with your teammate is the #1 rule of motorsport. Well, it's beat your teammate. The second rule of motorsport is don't take out your teammate, and they won't want to do that because, of course, there is a team's championship up for grabs this season, much as well there is plenty of drivers' championships up for grabs. But from that analysis of the top four and how they continue on their journey, we do look there to Tobias Kuchen, and well, the German driver here in the number 14 Mercedes. Well, he's just been passed by Niels Package after going a bit deep at turn number 1 as I looked out my commentary booth window. But right now, the Solpeck Mercedes are looking very lovely. In fact, I must say that is a very beautiful livery on the car, and it works in the low lighting effect. And a little bit of trivia for you, if you didn't know this about Daytona, if you're wondering why, despite the fact that Daytona has one of the strongest floodlight systems in the world for motorsport and events hosted in the arena, why the circuit is still so dark is because they're artificially darkened, these lights, down to only 25% of their normal operating brightness capacity, and that is to create a nighttime effect, which drivers in GT3 class machines, particularly when you do have the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona that happens here on an annual basis, it is to enable there to be an effective nighttime. If you watch the Rolex 24 Hours and then you watch NASCAR at Daytona at nighttime, you will notice when it's NASCAR racing, the circuit is practically as bright as daylight, even though it's definitely very dark out there. And that's a little fact that you can take to the pub quiz if anybody ever asks you that, if it ever should come up. Indeed, we will gradually give you those facts over the course of the season, some pub quiz facts here. And, well, if you've got any Daytona facts, be sure to throw them out there in the YouTube or the Twitch chat. And, well, do say hello to you there, and do let us know who you're cheering on over the course of the race today, as we do continue to make our way towards the halfway point of the race. And Brett Bearings here, well, he's still leading in the M class. As that is Christian Maltrek, who's ejected himself out of the bus stop chicane. Oh, no, and I don't think that's a happy Porsche. Now, I say that because that was a big shame about. I think that's going to be towed. Yes, it is. And for Christian Maltrek, a very small mistake, but it's a very costly one, and that will reset him a lap, and it's going to put him right out the hunting for the victory in the Pro class, or at least the podium. And, well, we'll get a replay of that very shortly as Sean Cranley Swash here now decides that he's going to get a little bit closer to Giles Philippets this time, albeit Ruben Bearings is right behind. And, well, here they go. And a big mention to Ruben Bearings was Sean Cranley Swash there decides to lift off the throttle. I think he lets and the DDK Racing Team Pro drivers go together, and I think Cranley Swash has definitely got his high-speed chest hat on today, and, well, I think he's being very smart and sensible with this because he's recognising the fact that he's not going to beat the pros, but if he can just simply run his own race, he will go strongly here. He's currently second in the AM class. The only driver in front of him is Bearings, who is 5.3 seconds up the road. Bearings does have the tyre Casper Brotner to work with, so Cranley Swash will not ideally want to lose Philippets and Bearings, but even so, a second place on the opening round of the season, he won't complain about that because he was one of the most improved GT3 Pro drivers in the most recent Multiclass League at Season 3, put on a stellar set of performances, was very unlucky not to take a victory in multiple rounds given his performances, but still definitely a multi-time podium finisher and well deserved at that. And something tells me he could be one of those drivers, if he gets it right this season, there's no reason he couldn't be a champion, as that is definitely going to be a bruise or two to a potential championship contender early on. Was that Reese Kitley who's gone around? I think it was, and in the end Bearings and Philippets have both come into the scene of the incident. We're going to get a quick replay of a couple of events that have happened, ladies and gentlemen. We go to replays then, and we start off with the Reese Kitley crash. Now, this was coming down into turn number 7. He was letting the field in front of him go. It comes off of the apex, and the rear just let go there on the McLaren. It tries to get the car turned, it puts the throttle in, lets the car roll forward, and the field separates around him. But in the end, Bearings not knowing which way to go, and the two having to come in together. And before that, we had this for Christian Maltrek, and, well, that was him going sideways into the barrier. But can we get an on-board as to how that happened? We'll have to try and see if we can. I believe we might be able to. Was this the on-board footage? Yes, it was. Let's listen in. And you could see there for the Slovakian driver just carrying a bit too much speed after lift off the throttle. The weight distribution of the car not in its normal place. And the Fisher Motorsport car just going to the barrier. Well, as we come back to your live race, there's still more to come, and Bearings decides to come straight into the pit lane after his shunt there with Kitley. And, well, absolutely brilliant to see that he's been able to mould his strategy in order to deal with the situation. Now, with the fact we are at the 18th lap, we are at the halfway point of race distance now, based on the fact we're expecting 35 laps here over the hour. So it does mean for a number of drivers, they will be thinking about that pit stop. The idea of the game is you do want to go as long as possible and therefore give yourself a little bit more life in your tyres towards the end of the race. But right now, it's getting very very twitchy here as the top four now find themselves across some back markers there. And well, as they do, that's not to be rude about drivers who are a lap down, but that's what happens in not just multi-class racing, but also in single-class racing when you've got drivers a lap down or two. You find the traffic at the wrong point on the lap, and you suddenly lose the cars in front of you. And Dolzau in particular losing Palsland and also Stadzuk, and now has Stuart Reynolds right behind. And Reynolds there, I think he does want to give his rival a little bit of a bump draft if he can. They are pushing each other along. You can see their nose to bumper, and well, that's to try and help each other move forward. We then do have a 5-second gap to Derbyshire as Milton Tomlinson Dennis is into the pits from 5th place. So he's decided he's pulled the trigger early here, knowing that they're coming up to back markers, and that's only going to hurt them. So he doesn't want to get caught up in it. But all drivers right now definitely trying to pick the right time for the pit stops. As further on back, well, the driver who you saw right in the medley of that was Pavel Bus, your 4th place rookie driver, albeit Bruce has taken his mandatory pit stops. So that's why he's dropped away from the lead of the rookie class. But never say never, because of course Alex Brown has yet to take his pit stop, the rookie leader, but still he's leading out there, and credit where it's due. And in fact, a little bit of a story about Alex Brown. When he was on the grid for our Multiclass League Season 3 last time out, that was his first ever iRacing Sim Racing League. I think in fact it might have been his first ever Sim Racing League as a whole, or at least his first formal one, but don't quote me on that. I know it was his first iRacing one. New to the grid, had some difficult rounds, but gradually picked up the pace, and to see him right now contesting a top 3 in the rookie class, good on him. Really happy to see that, and I hope we see that more over the course of the day. I won't say too much more, because otherwise I'll give him the commentator's curse. I do have a habit of doing that when I praise a driver. It immediately goes wrong. But good to see him out there enjoying himself, as everybody seems to be peeling into the pits now. And I wouldn't be surprised if our leaders are going to 19th lap. They are going to be coming at the end of this one, given that it's now going to be one of those situations whereby those fuel tanks are definitely going to be experiencing a bit of fuel starvation. However, as Stadzuk heads on through, well, what's he going to do this time as he heads towards that line? We will see, as Palsland only 3 attempts behind. Do we get the distant camera view to show them in perspective? Yes, we do, as they come past the flat section. And as they head on through it, there they go into the pits then. It's the case. They can't go any further. As you can see, Palsland trying to outbrake his rival into the pit lane. That's a bit cheeky. He decides to play the game a bit more aggressive. Does he get away with it? I think he does, in terms of not being caught out by the speeding limiter line. And will they drag race their way towards their pit boxes? And I think James Palsland's saying right now, I've saved all the fuel. I need to be absolutely on your backside in order to get past you into lead and to break away. And well, in the best part of approximately 24 seconds time, we will find out exactly which of these drivers is going to be leading. But as everything plays out, we look to Darryl Norquette as our blimp camera there finds another car, and we head on down to circuit side, and Norquette right now with Daniel Pays. Well, that's going to be Pays going very deep at the exit turn number 7, brings it back together, but that's not before Norquette decides to make his way out the inside, so a change of position there. But what happens at the front of the field? They leave the pit lane, and that is Daniel Stadzuk still leading ahead of Palsland, who comes out behind. Well, our whole theory of right now Palsland and his teammate Dolzau being able to save more fuel than Stadzuk seems to be incorrect. Albeit I say that, I think he might have stalled it in the pit lane as Palsland, because stationary time was 21.01 seconds, but when he tried to launch out of the pit box, it took an extra 2 seconds there. So Stadzuk, in fact, having the better exit out the pit lane compared to his rivals, and your top 4 remains as they are. And well, with that, it means that right now we could have a bit of a break-up in the field at the top 4, because the gaps between the drivers have opened up sizably. Further back down the order, we come to the Pro class, and here we can see it's all pandemonium in Pro, because Shilcock comes on through. Zana Hill's just left the pit lane. Shilcock decided to go a lap early, too wide on exit of the pit lane, but Shilcock returns to second place in the Pro class. He's absolutely nailed this as he comes on through, and well, the strategy has played out. Ryan Davies, meanwhile, has lost out as he catches a little bit of traffic there on the exit, and well, in doing so, now brings himself back up to speed. That's going to cost him some time. Casper Rotner as well has got Brett Bearings right behind him. Bearings still comes out your leader in the AM class here. It's all happening very quickly, and well, Bearings there won't be too inconvenienced by the fact he's got a Pro in front of him, so long as that Pro driver doesn't cost him too much time, because Bearings has only got a gap of 7 seconds over Sean Cranley-Swash. That sounds like an eternity, but if he loses a couple of seconds a lap by being caught in a car that's a bit slower than him, you can understand if it does mean for him, he suddenly starts looking in his rearview mirror and notices that the 117 Audi of Sean Cranley-Swash is looking very menacing. But still more to come, and in all of this, well, we talked about Pavel Brus coming into the pits quite early for the AM class. Well, not for the AM class, for the rookie class there. I'm going to stumble over that multiple times this season, I'm sure of it, given the recent class changes, but bear with me, folks. And right now, Brus doing a very good job here, leading on his debut in the rookie class. Alex Brown, he's had his pit stop, way Long has worked out for Brown. In fact, he's retained second place here ahead of Thomas Helmer and Alistair Murray. Well, right now, Brown might be on course for his first ever podium in his GT3 Racing League career with UK Sim Racing, and that's definitely going to be a big result there if he can pull it off, but still a way to go. He's got Sight Anti for company behind, and if I was a betting man, I think Brown is just going to let Anti go up the inside him on exit. Does close the door a little bit there, and I think Anti might have been looking over his right shoulder and figured, okay, Alex, what are you doing? But I think Alex there really trying to make the message to Sight Anti, which is, look, just go past, and I need to sniff your toe all the way around here in order to carry all the speed, because I do not want Helmer getting more than 7 seconds or less closer to me. The gap's 7.5 seconds at the moment, and I think he'll be very happy with that if he can maintain the gap where it is. Well, there's your top 35 after the best part of 20 laps turned, and we've still got the best part of 15 laps to go, and that means we are in the region of about 20 minutes or so remaining, ladies and gentlemen. Still a long way to go, as we do say hello there to that guy Moles in the YouTube chat also, and we're talking a little bit about there the variety of car choices and seeing the balance of performance working, and indeed looking at very good there. We also say hello to Simon Bam, who's enjoying the pub quiz facts there with regards to circuit, and I don't have any others on hand for Daytona, but I can tell you one thing: we do head to Brands Hatch in a week's time. I might have one or two there. But enough about pub quiz facts. Let's come down to the facts on the circuit right now, and those facts are that Daniel Stadler, after that pit stop, is 2 seconds clear at the front of the field in elite and overall ahead of Palsland and Dolzal. And the two Mercedes teammates here, second and third, they've broken away from this man, Stuart Reynolds, but the problem is they have not found a way to make an entry onto that Acura, and that Acura has proven itself to be a monster. And if anything, it does seem as though Stadler might have been using a bit more fuel at the front of the field, but the one thing he has also done, he has shown to everyone just how strong that Acura can be here at Daytona, and will that be a sign of the remainder of the season? We will have to wait and see. Further on back, if you skip over Sam Derbyshire, who's in 5th, you then come to this fight for 6th, and this is William Campbell versus Tomlinson Dennis, and these two still locking horns here as we ride on board of the second of the two drivers in the Corvette Z06, and this is Tomlinson Dennis, the car that was built off of the platform of the Corvette C8R GTE. With the closure of GTE class racing in the World Endurance Championship, Corvette decided to move to the Z06 platform, and well, the Z designation being in reference to their absolutely uprated sport performance cars and also their racing cars on the street. You'll hear of the ZR1 on the racing circuit, you'll hear of the likes of the Z05 and the Z06, and it is here right now as the world of racing with STR Motorsports driver nice and close to the back of his rival of William Campbell. But right now for Tomlinson Dennis, just watching is the St Vincent's driver as he makes way through turn number 7. And well, we do know that this Corvette has been a very odd car in recent history in the iRacing balance performance, because the body shape of the car, many liken it to an American Ferrari in terms of the aero model on it. And it does mean that this car has a lot of grunt, but it has also got an aerodynamic model which doesn't always suit it for top speeds. We have typically seen the Ferrari takes a long time to get to its top speed, particularly with an elongated 6th gear, and this Corvette can feel a little bit slow on the top gear acceleration. But the upside of it is it does have a lot of pull in the lower gears, and also it's got quite a few good handling characteristics, much like the Ferrari. So it is a bit of jack of all trades, master of none. But right now for Milton, he's just digging his head down here, staying close to that Mercedes, and hoping by staying so close to the back of Austin William Campbell that he can goad his rival into using more fuel and therefore have the pace at the end of the race to leap ahead of him, because a number of drivers, they may have intentionally underfueled with respect to the pit stop they've had, with the basis that they would come out around their rivals and therefore be able to do the fuel saving with their rivals. So this is always on the mind of everyone right now, who's actually got enough fuel to get to the end of the race without needing to do some fuel saving. And you normally start to see in the final 5 laps, nobody wants to reveal their hands, and suddenly everybody reveals in the final few laps how much fuel they've actually got and whether they can hold positions. And those who've got more fuel, you suddenly typically see they start to get a little bit more aggressive. They really start to try and say to the cars around them, right, I want to lead this pack because I think I've got the fuel to do it. Can you stay with me? But right now these two are staying nose to tail, no sign of any leeway between them. Indeed, absolutely match a pace, and it's fascinating to see. If we wound back the clock a season, indeed the Corvette being a car that wasn't on the grid for season 14, and well, with that absence right now we're seeing plenty more Corvettes out there. And Tomlinson Dennis very close on the exit of turn number 6, seeing that the strength of the Corvette and low-speed corners, and particularly hairpins versus that Mercedes. But that Mercedes, as soon as you start to get it onto the straights, we see a graze of the wall there for William Campbell. You can see how that V8 muscle really pulls from Germany, and the idea being front engine rear-wheel drive, it's very sensitive in second gear. It's a very prickly car in low-speed corners, but as soon as you go to medium speeds and higher, it can absolutely fly. But But as they fly their way down towards the bus stop chicane, no change this time between the two. Stay exactly as they are. But meanwhile, speaking of changes further down the field, Thomas Helmer and Alistair Murray, they fight over third place here in the rookie class, and we catch them just in time as Murray's going to go up inside there. Not too much drama this time as they go onto the brakes. However, Helmer here might be playing a bit of strategy. He might be letting Murray take the position for now and looking to swap back later. Keep in mind that only 7.5 seconds off of the back of Brown, and Brown is doing everything in his power as we see the BMW leaving the International Horseshoe hairpin. He's trying to walk away with this one for the second place, given that Bruce is too far away to really be a target at this point, and Bruce being the best part, I believe, about 20 seconds clear. But all is still to come with regards to all the racing here, and it's not over until they see that checkered flag. And remember, many a driver, they will change 1 or 2 tyres of the pit lane. Given the fact they can change tyres and take fuel simultaneously, it does normally mean the tyres on one side of the car are changed, whether it be the left or right. But with this Daytona circuit being dominated by left-hand corners, where it be the right side tyres that get changed, some drivers may not have changed tyres at all, on the understanding that the car will feel a lot more comfortable if they just simply stay on the same tyres. Unfortunately, what's not going to be comfortable is we've just had a car had to be towed to the pit, and that is Simon Hartley's car. And what exactly happened to Simon Hartley? Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, because he's been in a bit of drama. Now this was the SimCoach DWR machine. The Acura heading down to turn 1, carries a lot of speed into the corner, puts the brakes on the slide there. He knows where he's going. Oh no! And that's hit the grass. It's bounced to the barrier, and for Hartley, it is all over. That's a big shunt, and there's no way back from that other than have it repaired. Well, as we come back to your live racing pictures, it all went wrong there for Simon Hartley, and we're just carrying a bit too much speed into turn 1. Very easy to do. I think the confidence was there, but the car wasn't willing to go with the confidence, and well, in the end, paying the price. But coming back to all the racing that's going on, and well, as we can see here, it's on the hill right now, still 12, still bringing along with him the elite driver and Nils at Puck Edge. And in fact, interestingly, that Ford Mustang has fallen down the order considerably in the pits, and one of the longest pit times ever any of our elite drivers for Nils, and that was a pit stop time of almost, well, in fact, 1 minute and a second, a stationary time of 24 seconds. That's the longest, excluding Joe Newman, the class leader in Pro, and Daniel Shilcott, the second place driver in the Pro class there. Goodness me, it's a hot day in the United Kingdom. And as our drivers make the way through, well, right now it is one of the situations whereby for Package, it does seem as though everything has gone a bit backwards, albeit he's going to go forwards there as he ducks at the inside of Hill's McLaren, or gains the place back there, and as he makes it on a round, well, it's a nice place picked up, but it's not a class position. He'll move up into 12th, but notice he's still got a bit more to do. With more to do, and indeed for many a driver here, there's still more on the table. We look to Darren O'Care and the Racing Forces Mercedes. Well, what's it got for company? It has got the car of Ruben Behrings, only 6 attempts up the road. And Behrings right now continues to press onwards as he makes his way onto his 25th tour of the circuit under race conditions. We've got 10 laps remaining, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our final lap. And with that, we do have the best part now of about 15 minutes left on the clock. And all the drivers continue to put in some rather impressive performances. However, the question is anybody going to drop off before all the race is said and done? Because the big battles, they've paused for a moment. The only battles we do have on circuit are the battles in the elite class towards the front of the field, albeit those are pairs of drivers right now working together or mutually essentially saying to each other, look, let's not fight until the very end. But anything can happen, it normally does at Daytona. And well, as we do look here to Austin William Campbell, it's still holding on to 6th overall in elite class. Well, on his mind right now is the fact that Tomlinson Dennis is right there with him. These two still pushing each other along, and it is going to be anything but stable between them. I suspect the final 2 laps, the gloves are going to come off, and that 192 Corvette is suddenly going to reveal its fangs and absolutely go on the attack. But William Campbell, to be fair, no slouch when it comes to racing. Well, there's the swap of position between them, and Tomlinson Dennis right up the inside. William Campbell decides to cut it back, and he goes round as Tomlinson Dennis. Oh my goodness, and well, in the end, it was William Campbell essentially giving him a little push to say, okay, I'll help you correct your way on your day. But that is a big surprise and not a welcome one, to be certain, if you're Milton Tomlinson Dennis. The Corvette that's been looking so smooth suddenly comes completely unstuck. Could have been far worse, but they get away with it. But Joe Newman now tucks into the back of this, and Newman, who has absolutely been flying at the head of the Pro class, well, right now he's got a bit of company in front of him. I think that's going to give him a little bit of a driver to work with here. It feels like he's got a bit of a pace car in front of him. However, the only problem is, with a 17-second gap to Daniel Shilcock, well, he might have on his mind right now, okay, I'm quite close to the back of a Corvette that's just had a spin. Is that going to start to cost me a little bit of time? Well, he's got time to play with. He could afford to lose at least a second a lap and still win this race quite comfortably at the moment. So I think for Newman, he's just got to keep a cool head on here and not put it into the grass or into the barrier or into his rival at any point. But to be fair, if anybody knows how not to do that, it's definitely Joe Newman, and the fact that we're looking to be very consistent here and on his way to a pro victory if things stay as they are for the rest of the day. But as he makes his way onwards, well, we've still got more to come a little bit further up the order. And we've got the big question here of will it be Hulsland or Dolzal winning take home second place. The two teammates still here, and absolutely wonderful match in liveries. But right now for Pavel Dolzal, he definitely has been working with his teammate. These two have been very obliging to each other, and I think if anything, just give a little bit of a tap there on the rear. That's a gentle bump draft there. That will give him 1 to 2 miles an hour more, but nothing more than that, because they won't damage the front bumpers, particularly the low-end front splitter of these Mercedes. And that's how you can tell the difference between the original Mercedes AMG GT3 machine from 2016 and the Evo from 2020 was the introduction of that front splitter on the bottom end of the front of the car. Not something there, and indeed a rarity in terms of the way the length of the splitter protrudes from the front of the car. Indeed, this splitter now adjustable in iRacing as a result of the most recent update. If my memory serves me correctly, it's a number of cars with splitters. You couldn't adjust them beforehand. But going from a split in fact to split in places, and here we can see that Joe Newman right now will make his way up into 7th place overall, up the inside of Tomlinson Dennis there. A change of position overall, not in class, and Newman now making his way onwards here, and I think Tomlinson Dennis will be hoping he can work with the Ford driver to close the gap of 1.5 seconds to William Campbell, because this Mustang, I'll tell you one thing, it's an absolute monster on straights. It will also give you tinnitus when you're driving it, whether it be in real life or alternatively on the simulator. And well, the roar of that machine right now, it may have been muffled over the course of 2025 of the World Endurance Championship FIA regulations, but you can't muffle the sound of pure V8 monstrosity. Speaking of which, let's listen to it. And that wonderful roar there from the Coyote 5-litre V8 engine. And well, we got to hear it for a brief moment. And well, as Newman makes his way onwards, definitely and in a sound that is completely distinguishable from the rest of its rivals. And well, as he heads onwards and around right now, we'll sing the praises of Ford Mustang. We have to look here, a little bit of squabble. Oh no, and that was Alex Brown almost going around there. The second place rookie driver almost snapping loose there, battling side by side with Casper Tunstead. And well, he keeps it together here. And Brown right now doesn't need that many more mistakes, but the problem is with mistakes like that costs time. And look who just made his way very sideways out of the international hairpin. You know he's pushed it hard. That is Alistair Murray. He's not content with third place in rookie, but he's going to have to be for a brief moment because the race leader's got the inside of him into the kink. And while he respects them, sees them coming and lets them go. But that's going to bring Thomas Helmer right into the mix here. And well, for the Corvette number 80 car, he's going to be hoping this is going to give him an opportunity to come back at the third place battle, but Brown right now has got to keep it together for the simple reason he has lost a bit of time, albeit in the exchange. It does seem as though time's come back his way, now back up to 3.5 seconds. But anything could happen with regards to when traffic comes on through. And for Brown, I think he's got to be looking at his rearview mirror, looking at his timer, and deciding, okay, I know they're coming. When do I let them go, and when do I lose the least amount of time? And ideally here at Daytona, you do it into a hairpin, because you don't want to do it anywhere where you've got a long acceleration zone. Ideally, you do it at turn number 6 because you've got the shortest run to the next corner, and therefore if you lose a second there, your rivals can't catch up as much. But if you back off the throttle on the exit at turn 7, for example, you lose a lot more time on the run round the oval, particularly if you can't stay in the draft of the cars in front. And it's all learning that he's got to apply here as he heads towards the closing stage of this race. And with Bruce being 17 seconds ahead, well, it does mean that right now, Brown's just thinking about that second place. Here's Helmer, meanwhile, keeping an eye on third place as he continues to chase after Alistair Murray. And that could happen at any moment in time. We're still waiting to see how close he can get, because they were the opposite way round a few laps ago until they changed places. And well, no change at the moment. And speaking of changes, looking up the order, there's a change of place. Or is it going to be? Yes, it is. That's going to be Tomlinson Dennis moving back into 7th place overall, ahead of Joe Newman, the pro leader, who drops back to 8th place. And he won't mind that whatsoever, because at the end of the day, it doesn't affect him. It just changes the order of these two cars around. And his idea is that he's not going to lose too much time, because Shilcock is now 18 seconds behind and is still losing pace as a result of these two trying to mutually work together. But speaking of working together here, Shilcock trying to hold on to second place in Pro Class, and to do so, working with Nils Bockhedge as they come in towards turn number 1, getting very close to the back of the Ford Mustang there under brake, and that Porsche's brakes are incredible. It has to be said, in the rotation that comes with it. And we're here, 2.5 seconds behind in the McLaren, bringing Ryan Davies 1.4 seconds back behind, but these two seem to have settled their differences. And It's not going anywhere at the moment between them. Indeed, it was a very dramatic start to this race at Daytona, but things have calmed down. And I don't want to say I've calmed down that much, because otherwise I'm going to make some up words very quickly. But right now, I think everyone's just trying to get to the end of this race, and everyone right now are already also seeing exactly how far the tyres go on this new model. And the one thing that's also been pointed out is in the fact that these tyres, they take a long time to get up to temperature, but it also does mean they do normally, if they're managed well, have a lot more longevity to them. So those who can manage the tyre over the 60 minutes, they maybe feel a lot more comfortable with the car. But coming from two drivers who are definitely closing on a potential battle, we come to BJ Alvarez, and well, he running in 5th place in the rookie class. The American driver here looking very happy in that Porsche 992. And well, in front of me, he's got Casper Tunstead, who you can see here. But these two, there's nothing between them. And well, from Alvarez to Pearson, the 6th place rookie driver, it is a comfortable margin of 20 seconds. Therefore, he'll be feeling quite happy with the gap and how it's all opened up. But from all of these drivers, still, that comfort comes from the fact that there was so much drama in the early stage. And Stuart Pearson, the slow and steady Racing 23, the second of the slow and steady BMWs. Definitely not the race he's wanted. He started all the way up in 22nd place. And for him, well, in fact, not 22nd place, that was Jack Barker. I'm getting my names mixed up there. In fact, Pearson started 48 for the grid. He was the last lot of starters. And when he did so, has made up a lot of places. So for Pearson, there's definitely been a lot of gains. But something tells me he would have liked a much better qualifying session and seeing where he could have gone. But still, the slow and steady racing machine with the turtle on the side of it. I believe that's meant to be the symbol of a turtle on the driver's door. I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong. But the idea is right now, he might not be as fast as the hare, but he can definitely be slow and consistent like the turtle. And well, over the course of distance, that consistency is paying off for him and getting him some good points to the board. From him, well, we look back to Darren Sharples and the Old Dudes and Cars driver right now, one of many of the old dudes out there. Well, he's currently running 3rd in the AM class with teammate Daniel Pays behind. And I can tell you one thing, the ethic down in the garage at ODIC, or Old Dudes and Cars, is a very team-orientated ethic. They do like battling each other, but they will only battle sensibly. And the two drivers there, Sharples staying with the McLaren that he's enjoyed in previous seasons. Pays going to the BMW, and quite interesting because the last time we saw Pays in the GT3, it was in, I believe, the Ford Mustang, unless I'm mistaken. And, well, right now, changing one front engine rear-wheel drive machine for another, going to the BMW. This BMW seems to be suiting his driving style, with inline 6, and on his way on through there, the 6-cylinder with the turbo to it. And, well, going a bit sideways there, coming out of the second of the horseshoe hairpins, but still keeping it on track. And remember, this car due later this year, if not already, for an upgrade to its Evo machine, having arrived in the GT3 racing mode in 2022. And, well, as a 2025 BMW now releasing the Evo version onto the world, and the main changes being in the aerodynamic parts, particularly around the wing mirrors. You'll see they're a lot more jagged in order to improve the straight line speed, and also are around the side skirts of the car. That's the main changes. Normally Evo cars do see slight changes when it comes to the aerodynamics. The only time you do see some huge changes is with regards to cars such as the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, but more on that a little bit later on, because right now that's going to be a bit of pressure there. Shilcock trying to say to Niels Uplockage in front of him, look, can you politely get a move on here, because I've got all the speed under braking, your Mustang should have it on the straight. In fact, Shilcock, I think, just wants to continue to be pulled along a little bit, albeit the impatience is wearing thin. And speaking of things wearing thin, that gap between Hill and Davies has definitely worn on down. It's come down quite drastically over the previous lap by 7/10 of a second. Something tells me Hill might have had a bit of a slowdown somewhere on circuit, but as they roll off, well, our leaders, they're on lap number 31, the Simba on lap number 32. We haven't got long to go, and as everybody continues to push onwards here, we do say hello to Iron Aces in the Twitch chat, and I believe that might be none other than, I believe, Daniel Shilcock there, was saying I was bump drafted Niels to give a chance of overtaking Simon Bamber. And we'll explain the story there, and I do appreciate that, Iron Aces, and thank you for the insight there. And indeed, we thought you might be getting a little bit impatient there in the Porsche, given the speed you're carrying, but also giving a bit of an A to an elite driver, and well, I'm sure Niels appreciates it. But as Davies there having a bit of a sideways moment coming out of turn number 7, the car not quite settling down, and this McLaren rear tyres are one of its weaknesses. It can get quite aggressive to its rear tyres later on in the race distance, and we're right now losing the time he was gaining on the hill. It's back up to 6/10 of a second. It will close in the draft, and in fact we might be able to bring up the delta between the two. There it is, and you can see how it oscillates here under braking in the battle of the two McLarens. Both of them will nurse those rear tyres as they roar the way through. Hill there very sideways on the exit at turn number 10, just catching the car in time, but steering with his throttle pedal, and onwards they go then and around. But you can see here Davies at 6/10 back. He's closing little by little, and in terms of the speed he's picking up here now, 164, 165. He's going to be heading upwards of 170 miles an hour here as he really starts to pick up the toe. But the problem is with the length for the gear in here, he'll gain that speed little by little in small increments, getting up to a peak speed of 176 miles an hour. But he has to put the brakes on and do it all over again. And they roll the way through turn number 1. He wants to be close. If he can get within 3 tenths, it might be an opportunity here for him to look for a move. He's going to think about it to the hairpin, decides not to. 3.5 tenths is the delta there. But whilst all this has been going on, we have had a bit of drama further down the order, because in the battle for 3rd place in the rookie class, we have seen Thomas Helmer drop down to 5th. Now, what exactly has happened to explain that story? I think we might be able to get a quick replay, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen, what's happened to Thomas Helmer. Now, this was battling with number 80. That was number 80 battling alongside its rival, and I think that was Kitley there in contact with Helmer and going around. That was Reese Kitley in the McLaren, unless I'm mistaken, and Helmer into the barrier there and losing the position. Seems to be frustrated at that one as we come back to your live racing. More still to come, and well, we haven't got long left in this race now in terms of time remaining. On lap number 33, and with that, as our leaders continue the way on through, where's Daniel Stazet right now leading by a 6.2 second gap. That gap has grown absolutely massively over the last couple of laps. I think right now anybody can touch Daniel Stazet well. I think it's not going to be a question of when, well, no, it's not going to be a question of if, but it's going to be a question of when he sees that checker flag buying a major mistake. On his way out of the hairpin, well, then you've got to look 6 seconds back here to Hulsland and Dolzell, who are both still running on very comfortably and heading all the way upwards. And well, could we see a potential opportunity here for them to do a bit of battling? Well, something tells me they may decide not to fight each other just because they've worked so closely together right now. Would it be worth it? However, the little devil on the shoulder says you always want to beat your teammate where you can, and with a 5.5 second gap to Stuart Reynolds in 4th place, the next to the Acuras, well, these two definitely might be thinking about it there. If they're definitely using all the road, plus also some of the grass on with them, I would imagine that we're going to be seeing a lot of trimmings in the front radiator grills of those cars by the end of it. However, that's legal given the fact they are keeping 2 wheels within the racing surface, and well, any more than that they definitely will be running wide. But that's how much they're trying to open up the circuit, and you'll see that in all manner of racing, particularly GT3s, and the fact that these cars, they can run quite stably to what is the runoff area and also to a little bit of grass, and in doing so they try to open up the corners as much as possible, but take it a little bit too much and then they end up in a position whereby they end up going around when they go onto the brakes. The idea is you want to open up the corner, and in return to the racing surface you put the brakes on. Don't do so, then you'll suddenly find that one side of the car is getting a lot more braking force than the other, and that's when you do see the big dramatic incidents. But with that incident here, we go on to lap number 34 for our race leader. It'll be his penultimate lap of racing, as does it right now, just putting away in the NJB Performance Machine, and what a drive this has been from him so far. Still a little way to go here, but I think the confidence definitely shining high as your 2 second place drivers here still stay nose to tail. Nothing between them. Further on down the order, well, in the rookie class, everything seems to be going the way of Pavel Bruce. He does have a 20-second gap over Alistair Murray. Hold up, no. Oh, what's happened here? We have lost Alex Brown. Now, I haven't quite got a replay to explain it. In fact, yes, we might have one, because there's Brown. He's in 4th place in the rookie class. He's lost out from 2nd place in the class. Surely not. What's happened to his race? We're going to quickly find out, ladies and gentlemen. And this was Alex Brown only moments ago then, running at the time, well, I believe he was already behind Alistair Murray and went round there at turn number 6. So the 25 driver losing out and, well, having one spin, I suspect, and in the end having another just to add to his woes and losing out there. As behind him, there was a spin for a Porsche driver. I'm trying to see who that was. Was that? I think that might have been Jeffrey Damon having a spin around, so everyone going for a spin there late on in the day. But let's come back to your live racing. As we come back, we haven't got long left then, as our leaders still on that penultimate lap, and well, everyone's still continuing to push onwards as much as they can. But right now, is it better not to push at all? That might be the big quotient here, as we've still got Zander Hill and Ryan Davies fighting over 3rd place in Pro Class. These two inseparable, and they really have been one of the battles between them all over the course of the distance. But as they continue on, with Daniel Shilcock 6.5 seconds clear, we can see up there that is going to be the second of the Sloan Steve Racing cars of Stuart Pearson behind them, so he's not really close enough to get involved between them at the moment. And well, from them, where else can it go at this point? Well, leader's gone on to the final lap, and Stazet right now leading by a comfortable margin, and well, he's going to try and bring it home as Joe Newman and Tomlinson Dennis swap places there in the battle for 7th place overall. But the pro leader right now in a very comfortable position, and roaring the way onwards well, anything that can happen until it's over. And in fact, speaking of that, as I'm made to mince my words, Milton Tomlinson Dennis into the pit lane, not able to go the distance with a lap to go. Surely that's not going to be for a splash and dash of fuel. If it is, that is going to be the most bruising moment on strategy, unless there's a drive-through penalty for instant points picked up, because of course it's very easy to get off track, particularly through the bus stop chicane. We'll keep an eye out our Conte booth window, as we've also got here the sport exchange between Nils Package and Daniel Shilcock, as they continue to push each other onwards. And I believe Tomlinson Dennis is making his way through the pit lane. I think it is a drive-through penalty for track limits and the instant points picked up. But here we go then. Davies looking versus Hill, looking around the outside through turn one. Can't quite find it. This will be the fight for third in Pro all the way to the end. Looks one way, looks the other, but can't find it through one, and it's not close enough coming through 2-3 to get it into 4. So Hill there feeling safe, at least for the time being, but is he going to be safe at quarter exit all the way out towards turn number 6? Well, if Davies has got the pace, he's going to need it here for going for the kink, because it's half a second of gap as they roar their way through the fast left-hander. I don't think he's going to be close enough, but we'll keep you apprised of it, ladies and gentlemen, because very shortly our race leader is going to be coming around for the final turn, and we will be cutting to that. But our drivers here right now, Davies and Hill, absolutely equaling each other as much as possible. But from them, we must come back to the front of the field, because for this man, for NJB Performances, Daniel Stazuk, he may be new to the grid for season 15, but right now, he's setting everybody's hearts afire, and he takes victory here at Daytona, and what a victory margin to do so, by 6.8 seconds over James Palsland, who in the end finishes ahead of teammate Pavel Dolzal to make it a 2-3 for their team. And then we will have Stuart Reynolds taking home 4th place there, ahead of Sam Derbyshire by a further 7 seconds, as we'll see Derbyshire make his way around, and we'll as a head on through. That's your top 5, but Austin William Campbell in 6th place just behind, and then Joe Newman will be your Pro winner here today. What a drive from him, absolutely faultless. Tobias Kruger will come home in 8th place when all is said and finished, as he roars his way to line there. And then we've still got a bit of time before we do get to our next car, and it will be Simon Bamber, 7.5 seconds back. He goes below the line, as does Milton Tomlinson Dennis. They both go below the yellow, and I think that will go to the stewards after the race, with Niels Backhuis just behind them to complete the top 11. Daniel Shilcock will take 2nd place in Pro, ahead of Xander Hill, who just holds off Ryan Davis to line for 3rd place in Pro. What a drive from him. And Brett Bearings, on his debut, takes victory in the AM class there, and a solid drive in the Audi R8 Evo, ahead of Casper Brotner, and then Sean Cranny-Swash is your runner-up in the AM class, ahead of Giles Philippette, with Darren Sharples completing that top 3. Or does he here, because he's got Daniel Pace right behind him. I think he's going to make it. Yes, they will. So Sharples will take 3rd in the AM class, ahead of his teammate Daniel Pace for Old Dudes in Cars. Ruben Bearings takes 21st. And, well, we've already had Pavel Brust come to line as your winner in the rookie class. And, well, they were a lap down, so that's why they've already come through, ladies and gentlemen. But I think what we might be able to do, as the whole field has made its way through, we've still got Neil Kenyon to finish his race. Let's see him to line, and there is 23rd. But can we get a replay of Pavel Brust making his way across the finish line? I think we might be able to. Give us a brief moment. Let's see if we can. And I think we can see then the checker flag again. And as we do, can we see Pavel Brust come to line? And here he was, ladies and gentlemen. I give him a round of applause as well, because this was your man who took a rookie victory on his debut. An absolutely faultless drive. And after his rivals lost it early on, well, Pavel Brust in the number 15 McLaren, he didn't put a foot wrong for DWR with SimCoach setups. But then, as we come back to your live racing, and indeed, let's go back there. Well, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are for our first round of the season. So incredible round of racing, no doubt about it, but overall we did see Daniel Stazuk there take victory for NJB Performance ahead of the Paceworks esports team of James Palsland and Pavel Dolzal. From them and your top 3, it was then Fury Sim Sports Stuart Reynolds who completed your top 4 in a bit of a lonely 4th place. He was dropped by the top 3, but he also managed to drop the rest of the field, and Sam Derbyshire was the next man in line, finishing 5th for DDK with Race Anywhere. Austin William Campbell was 6th for Effect Simulations ahead of your Pro winner Joe Newman, and what a drive from the Altitude 3M esports driver, absolutely unstoppable there. And I can already see all the questions in the YouTube chat and saying with regards to Joe Newman for Elite, well, I get the feeling right now he'll be very happy at that performance, and he'll be looking to try and put the Jokers at bay, and simply saying, no, he's got the pace in Pro, and he's going to try and deliver it every round of the season. Tobias Kruken finishing 8th there for Thorpec Precision Racing, a solid debut, and in the end clearing at Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations, with Milton Tomlinson Dennis with that late drive-through, having to settle for 10th place in World of Racing with STR Motorsports. Best of the rest in a length was Niels Buckedge, and the NJB Performance driver in the Ford, world, then being followed up by Daniel Shilcock, your runner-up in the Pro class, and the Tractix Racing driver 4 seconds clear of Xander Hill for Tiki Simsport, who round off your Pro top 3 in his close battle with the privateer Ryan Davies, who just missed out by 2/10 at the end. Brett Bearings was your winner in the AM class there for DDK with Digital Motor Art, and what a drive from him. In the end, absolutely unstoppable after a bit of early back and forth with his roles in the Pro class and also some fellow drivers in the AM class. He was able to break clear and then put some distance between him and his rivals. And speaking of the distance, well, Casper Brotner was part of that distance, finishing 16th for Old Duty Cars. And then you came to your runner-up in the AM class, Sean Cranley-Swash, moving to the Audi for Pigeon Racing, but the 117 driver there, well, absolutely making that Audi work. We then had Charles Philippetts, 18th for DDK with Race Anywhere, and Darren Sharples completed your top 3 in the AM class for Old Duty Cars ahead of his teammate Daniel Pays, who round off the top 20. Now, we're not going to go through the entirety of all the overall finisher positions. Let's hop our way down to 26th place, because that's where we will find your winner in the rookie class on his debut. Give him a round of applause for DWR with SimCoach Setups Red. Pavel Brus there, a lap down on the overall winner, but to be fair, all that matters to him is being the winner in the class and doing exactly that in absolutely a brilliant fashion. Alistair Murray was second in the rookie class there for UK Sim Racing, inheriting the position that Alex Brown dropped right at the close, with BJ Alvarez completing the rookie podium there for Push the Standard, and the slow and steady racing driver Alex Brown, he'll be kicking himself for that spin, but still, knowing that he was on course for a potential podium and he needs to take all the positives from that when we do head to Brands Hatch in a week's time. Coming to the end of our overall finisher positions then, we did see then a lap down all the way down to 34th place for Jack Barker after his frustrations on the opening 2 laps, particularly lap number 2, which was a lap of nightmares for the Maida Racing driver. And then we did have 2 laps down there to Simon Cheshire, Christopher Bates and James Conley, 4 laps down to Jordan Lee Jones, 6 laps down to Jeffrey Damon, who I believe will be classified as a non-finisher as he did not complete the race within 5 laps of the race winner. And, well, for the first time in at least my career of covering UK Sim Racing Leagues, and my first ever, for my entire sim racing and real-life motorsport commentary career, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we've had a disqualification for RK Motorsports' Reese Kitley there, and 11 laps down is classified, and that was a disqualification for 30 instant points in total. Unfortunate for him, but definitely a bit of a baptism by fire over the course of the racing down his debut. But I do believe we will see plenty more as the season goes on. I'm sure he can move upwards from there. Indeed, everybody's got to start somewhere. We also saw retirements for Darren Giacovelli, Dan Oliver Fox, Simon Hartley, Richard Jones, Steve Hughes, Peter Duke, Christian Maltrek, and Rob Windsor. But going to the individual class finisher positions in, and this is where the points truly matter, we start with Elite and Daniel Stazuk there, the NJB performance driver who kept us all guessing, did he have the pace in the Acura? And the short answer was, yes, he did. He pulled away after the pit stop and ran away with it ahead of the Paceworks esports pair of James Polsland and Pavel Dolzal. Stuart Reynolds was 4th there for Fury Simsport ahead of Sam Derbyshire for DDK with Race Anywhere, and in completing your elite top 10 it was Austin William Campbell, Tobias Kruken, Simon Bamber, Milton Tomlinson Dennis and Niels Placage, with then only a lap down to one driver in the elite class, and that was Casper Tunstead, the privateer. Coming on to the Pro class, and here we can see, well, it was a pro performance, no doubt about it, for Joe Newman for Altitude 3M Esports, 23.2 seconds clear of Tractix Racing's Daniel Shilcock, and Newman just needed to stay with the elite drivers, and when he did so, he pulled away at a staggering pace. And then from Shilcock, it was Xander Hill, who held on to the right for 3rd place in the best of the Pro McLarens for Tiki Simsport, ahead of the privateer of Ryan Davies, with your top 5 completed by Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars. Charles Philippetts for DDK with Race Anywhere finished just ahead of his teammate Ruben Bearings, and both of them there having 2 very different stories of the race, and you can understand if for Ruben in particular he'll be frustrated to have put it on pole and it all ended up in the grass on lap number 1, and in the end recovered well to 7th place, give him credit where it's due, but not the way he wanted the race to go. Darren Norquette, 8th there for Racing Forces, ahead of the privateer Nathan Foster was lap down. And there was also a lap down to Cy Anstey, who completed the top 10, and Krista Halsoy in 11th, with the only retirement of the class being Christian Maltrek for Fisher Motorsport, after that huge shunt to the barrier at the bus stop chicane. Coming on to the AM class, and in the second of our penultimate classes, we do see here Brett Bearings for DDK with Digital Motor Art by 8.5 seconds ahead of Sean Cranley-Swash. Well done to Bearings on what a drive, and it's a 1-2 for Audi. I can't remember the last time I've said that on iRacing with regards to it being being a 1-2 for Audi, but the Audi's definitely here to stay. Pigeon Racing, Sean Cranny Swash there in second. He'll be absolutely happy with that as well. Old Dudes in Cars then came in a pair next, and Darren Sharples was the last man on the podium in the 777 McLaren, ahead of his teammate Daniel Pays in the BMW M4. Well done to the both, with UK Sim Racing's Neil Kenyon completing the top 5. Jack Barker was a lap down, but still in it to win it all the way to the end for Made for Racing, finishing 6th, ahead of James Conley, who was an extra lap down, and then it was unfortunately non-finishes as classified for Jeffrey Damon for DWO SimCoach Setups Purple, and also DDK with Digital Motor Arts Peter Duke, and Rob Windsor there for UK Sim Racing. Then lastly, coming on to the rookie class, and here in the rookies, Pavel Burus on his debut, taking victory by 20.1 seconds for DWR with SimCoach Setups Red, ahead of UK Sim Racing's Alistair Murray. BJ Alvarez round off your top 3 there, and the push the standard driver just gradually making progress over the race distance. A solid drive from him in the Porsche 992. Alex Brown there, unfortunate to be off of the podium, but still, we'll take a 4th there and know that podium's coming soon. From the slow and steady racing driver, it was then NLK Racing's Thomas Helmer, and he round off your top 5 ahead of Stuart Pearson, the gap between the end being 22 seconds, and it was a lap down for Simon Cheshire in 7th for Dead Ahead Racing, ahead of LLLA's Christopher Bates, with the privateer of John Lee Jones and Reese Kitley, my apologies, completing your top 10 for Arcane Motorsport. Unfortunately, disqualification there for the number 24 McLaren, but still classified ahead of Swazi Gold's Darren Giacovelli, and also ahead of Dan Oliver Fox. And then we did come from the Ferrari drive to the 2 Acuras that retired of Simon Hartley and Richard Jones, with Steve Hughes completing your finishing order there of your rookie drivers. What a race, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt about it, and indeed a very strategic race as we went deeper and deeper into the race distance, but Daytona always has a habit of delivering that, but I'm sure, given the way the circuit's played out today, it's definitely put down some markers, and at the very front of the field, Daniel Stazuk demonstrating to everyone just how much pace he seems to have in the tank. But of course, now the racing concluded, the show's not quite over yet, because we won't be doing post-round broadcast interviews for our drives this season, given the fact that we are in a post-round broadcast setting, and therefore we are 24 hours behind all the racing, but what we can do is jump straight away into our VRS giveaway winners, and we'll give us a brief moment and we will bring those up on screen. And well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, and fix your lenses then as we come onto the giveaway machine. There it is, our wheel of names, and of course we need some names. Now, the entry criteria to be on this list, all you've got to do is be a driver who made your way to the grid. And all 48 of our entrants today, they all made it onto the grid. They had no issues getting onto the grid whatsoever, and they all started the race. So let's put all their names on. And well, firstly, for the 3-month VRS subscription, let's spin the wheel and find out who is going to be your winner for the first prize of the season. Here we go. And it's a big congratulations to Simon Bamber, who becomes the first 3-month VRS subscription winner. So therefore, he can't be eligible for that prize any longer this season, but we will, of course, remove his name afterwards. We're now going to do the same again for the 2-month subscription here, and well, Simon can remain on the list because he hasn't won this prize yet. So let's spin the wheel again. And well, Jack Barker, he may have had a lap 2 of misery, but the number 2 stays with him and takes him through to victory as he's taken home the 2-month VRS subscription. And then let's come to the 1-month winner. Here we go. Let's put them into list. All 2 of our winners so far can be eligible, of course, because it's for a 1-month subscription. And spinning the wheel, who's it going to be? And Pavel Dolzal takes home the 1-month subscription there, and well done to all 3 of our raffle winners, and we will contact them over the UK Sim Racing Discord after this broadcast in order to let them know their prizes and how they can retrieve them. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, it means now we need to take a look at provisional standings after 1 round of racing, and let's start with the elite class, and then here we are then. 1 round, and it does seem as though after 1 round, Daniel Stazuk has laid down the gauntlet in the NJB Performance Acura. However, James Palsland will not be too far behind, nor will Pavel Dolzal. They've got a lot of work to do in order to close the delta. Stuart Reynolds, he took home the fastest lap point, and therefore the Fury Sim Sport driver on 25 points rather than the traditional 24 that you'd see for a 4th place finish. He said to Sam Derbyshire, that is your top 5. And from the Sim Coach driver, it will then be Austin William Campbell, Tobias Kruken, Simon Bamber, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, and Niels Bakaj, who complete your top 10. Casperton said sits in 11th. He's the last of the point scorers so far. weren't on the grid this time round, but expect them on the grid at Brands Hatch. Jarrett Lee, James Armstrong, James Abraham, and Alberto Gravelli, and all 4 of those drivers competing in the majors 24 Hours of Le Mans on the weekend. And in fact, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, or was it the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring? Well, either way, I believe it was Le Mans. And well, these drivers definitely wanting to rest, but knowing they've got 2 drop scores available to them, and therefore it will be an opportunity for them to score big at Brands Hatch in a week's time. Coming to the Pro class, and as we move on to the second of our classes, well, Joe Newman was the man to beat today for Altitude 3M Esports, and well, what a delivery there. Fastest lap point going his way as well as victory, ahead of Daniel Shilcott for Tractix Racing and Tiki Simsport Zander Hill, and a brilliant battle there with Ryan Davies just holding on to third. Casper Brockner was 5th, and then we do see Charles Philippert ahead of his teammate Ruben Behrens for DDK with Race Anywhere, and Behrens there taking the pole position lap, but knowing those 19 points will feel like a drop score given the pace he demonstrated, and he'll want to rectify things in a week's time. Darren Norquette, Nathan Foster and Cy Anstey completed your top 10, with Krista Halsoy best the rest in 11th and the last of the point scorers, with Matthew Sheraton and Christian Maltrek yet score any points, and unfortunately for Maltrek, that retirement seen him not score today at Daytona and locking in a 0 score immediately. But now we come on to our driver there in the AM class, or drivers I should say, and in the AM class, well, it is Brett Bearings who leads the way, having taken the fastest lap point to his name for DDK with Digital Motor Art ahead of Sean Cranny Swash, who took the, well, in fact, it was Bearings who took the pole position bonus point, Cranny Swash taking the fastest lap bonus point there, so very equal between the 2 Audi drivers. Darren Sharples in 3rd, for Old Dudes in Cars, that is teammate Daniel Paynes, and Neil Kenyon completing the top 5. AM top 10, Jack Barker, James Connolly, Jeffrey Damon, Peter Duke, and Tom Weston being completed by them. Keep in mind, of course, Weston, 0 points scored to his name so far, wasn't on the grid, nor Simon Oldfield, Rob Windsor, Nathan Anstis, Matt Edmondson, or Ashley Brooks. And then coming lastly to the rookie class here, and well, Pavel Bros, the man who led today, didn't take any bonus points to his name, but definitely took victory, and that's what counts most. So DWO Sim Coach setups red. Alistair Murray was second there, with BJ Alvarez round off the top 3 for Push the Standard behind the UK Sim Racing Hill driver. And then Alex Brown, 4th there, the Slow and Steady Racing driver. He's definitely one to watch this season, ahead of NLK Racing's Thomas Helmer. Stuart Pearson, no bonus points as well, 6th there for Slow and Steady Racing, and it takes to 7th place there to pick up a bonus point, and that bonus point being in the plucky hands of none other than Speed Designs UK's Simon Cheshire, ahead of Christopher Bates, with then John Lee Jones and Reese Kitley completing your top 10. Damien Giacovelli in 11th there, best the rest, ahead of Dan Oliver Fox, with Simon Hartley, Richard Jones, who was the man who put it on pole in the class in qualifying, but was not able to seal the deal over the race distance, where he sits all the way down 14th place, gutted by that for SAS Racing. Ahead of Steve Hughes, and then completing the order, not scoring any points because they weren't on the grid, Martin Fernie and John Davis. As for the team championship, well, here's your top 15, and Paceworks Esports. It may have been a 2-3 for them in the elite class, but to be fair, that consistency is key, and they've opened up an initial gap of 4 points over Old Dudes in Cars. DDK with Digital Motor Art, they sit in 3rd, only a point ahead of Slow and Steady Racing. There's NJB Performance who complete the top 5. DDK with Race Anywhere on 39 points, 1 ahead of Tractix Racing, with UK Sim Racing Price a further 4 behind. It's Altitude 3M Esports and DWO Sim Coach Setups Red who complete your top 10. Pigeon Racing with best the rest in 11th, ahead of UK Sim Racing Hill. Then Tiki Sim Sport, Push the Standard, and Fury Sim Sport complete your team's top 15. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid for a future UK Sim Racing series, or perhaps you want to get yourself on the reserve list for the GT3 League at Season 15, given the fact we do have an absolutely full roster, but we've always got space for reserves, and you never know, you may get a chance to be on the grid later in the season. Well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you head to our website, and that is uksimracing.co.uk. And, well, there's another reason you might want to go to our website, ladies and gentlemen, because our website is the #1 place to go to for all things UK Sim Racing, and with that, we thought it was about time we launched a new version of our website, and here it is. There you go, our brand new website's homepage, and it's integrated with the UK Sim Racing Discord and YouTube channel, meaning it provides all the information you need. But how exactly does it do that? Well, on the homepage, which you're looking at here, you can see the latest announcements directly from our Discord, as well as a one-click link in the top left corner of the screen to join our official Discord community, and in the top right, you've got links to all of our different social media pages. However, wait, there's more, because if you go to live streams and videos on demand section, what you'll see here is the fact that currently this is displaying all of the different broadcasts we've had in the past from our YouTube channel, from all of our previous seasons, and you can load them all up there. And on race day as well, if you do want to be tuning in to different drivers' perspectives in our leagues, anybody who is running a broadcast in a UK Sim Racing league, so long as they've tagged it with the words UK Sim Racing, it will appear on screen. So if you've ever watched something like FIA WEC broadcast, or alternatively Formula 1 TV, UK Sim Racing's got its own version of it, effectively all on its own website. And it's absolutely brilliant because you can ride on board with our competitors, and you can also catch broadcasts like this, and they are readily available on demand, free of charge for your viewing. But on top of that as well, we do have our partners page, and well, if you ever want to be in pole position to get some of the finest service in the sim racing world with regards to products, whether it be professional photography from Ryan Walker Sim Racing iRacing Photography or RWS iRacing Photography, or Race Anywhere, one of the finest sim racing hardware providers in the United Kingdom. For all that and more, of course, our partners are listed here, and their links, all their details are readily available. And of course, we do have an active leagues page, where if you are curious about being on the grid with us, or just want to get some information on ongoing, previous or upcoming series, well, for all that information, it's right here on the Active Leagues page. All you've got to do is a couple of clicks and you'll find the series you're looking for and all the information you need to be on the grid potentially in a future series, or to catch up with all the latest information. Now, we do have plenty more to come to the website in the near future, so do stay tuned for further updates as they arrive. But to get to this website, all you've got to go to is uksimracing.com, and that web address, well, it's on screen there. And of course, if you want to follow us on social media, we do recommend you do so on our Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/UK Sim Racing. And I do see a please press F5 there with regards to the webpage, and well, we can see if we can get that back up screen for a brief moment. Well, that's our partners there, and we'll give us a brief moment. We might be able to do a bit of an F5 moment, although I do apologise if I seem to have missed something there, but I think we can quickly get that. Can we get that refreshed? Because I think we've got a little bit of a surprise to go, and there you go. In fact, there's the broadcast right now to give you an example there, and well, I do apologise for the fact we slightly missed that, but we do have that on our website. That's just an example of how you can tune in to one of our broadcasts going on, or if you've got multiple going on at the same time. But let's come back then to our social media consideration. Thank you, Chris, for pointing out there in the YouTube chat, and we'll do appreciate it. But with that, I think that's all we're going to have time for here, as if you do want to follow us on social media, do head to twitter.com/UK Simracing _. We can stay up to date with all the latest announcements on our Twitter page. And we also do want to say a big thank you to our title sponsor for this season, and that is the Virtual Racing School. Their web address, VRS.racing, and well, the aim of the game there with VRS is that established in 2016, the Virtual Racing School aims to help sim racers get faster for the provision of top tier software and hardware which draws upon the knowledge and experience of both real life racing drivers and sim racing professionals. A VRS subscription, extremely popular with sim racers around the world, provides an intuitive solution for combining data analysis and coaching, which may be used by racers at all levels in order to take their racing to the highest level out there. On top of that, a VRS Direct Force Pro line of wheelbases that is readily available, or the idea behind it being that it offers the cutting edge in sim racing hardware as used by more professional sim racers and real life racing drivers than any other brand in the world, including Formula 1 sensation Oscar Piastri. So if you do want to get faster, be sure to head to VRS.racing today to find out more. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more about how the story of the GT3 League Season 15 continues, we invite you to do so, because round number 2 heads to the Garden of England, the county of Kent, for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And on Monday, the 30th of June, 2025, we will bring you up to speed with all the racing actions as if it were live from the racing on Sunday, the 29th of June. What we've seen so far at Daytona, well, it was only one way forward for one driver in particular, and in the elite class, the man who dominated proceedings was Daniel Stazuk. However, could it all change in elite? Because in pro, it was a similar situation with Joe Newman leading the way. In AM and Rookie, it was a lot closer between rivals, but Brands Hatch, a very different style of circuit compared to Daytona, and with its much more narrow nature, and also its more technical nature, qualifying and track position will be key. But who will be the ones who master the key to victory? Well, for all that and more, you'll need to tune in next time. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And remember, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.